Triton people hurried to help a man who was under a heavy iron beam. He only wanted to live quietly, but one failure changed the other, and in the end, it all led to a senseless and terrible death. Everything happened very unexpectedly. But now the deceased got the opportunity to start all over. He was born again, this time as a baby named after Fea. Before degeneration, he saw a leader who stood on the verge of life and death. This creature knew about all the difficulties of his past. The conductor tried to reassure him. In a new body, he has a special status and many privileges. He will retain all his memories of his past, and will also receive protection worthy of the revived soul. However, there was so much information that the hero did not have time to understand it. The most expensive gift for me was the evaluation eye. It became an incredibly useful tool in my new life. This ability was created for him, and the leader advised him to get together as soon as possible and prepare for a new life. He compared all this with an incredible victory in the world lottery. Now he just had to put up and accept his new way. The leader promised him an extraordinary attitude in the new world, because it was the future that he saw in the mysterious. After that, the hero found himself in endless darkness. The last thing he heard was sincere wishes of a happy life, and before his eyes a shining smile of the conductor. It was very unusual to wake up a baby, but there was always a mother who hugged him with love and care. Even the maid treated him as a child, and quietly asked the owner of Gilbert to treat the baby more gently so that he would not be scared. The little Zika, as he was gently called at home, fascinated everything that happened around. Although he is not, the conductor warned that this world is not completely like ours, and all his secrets will have to be discovered gradually, step by step. ZK carefully explored how his evaluation eye operates, a special gift that had to help him better understand this unfamiliar world. It was only necessary to mention this force, as before the eyes of the boy flashed the window with detailed information. It all looked like an exciting game. Every small window appeared important data that described the world as it happens in role-playing games. Most of all was struck by the fact that luck has as many as 200 points. However, looking at his other characteristics, he realized that he was only a burden in this. At this time, the room included two young beauties, Mary and Exiled. The maid Anna reminded them of caution. The girls had silver hair and violet eyes, just like their mother. Zach, gradually getting used to his small body, suddenly grabbed his sister by his hand. Exiled was so surprised that Miriam promised to look after her younger brother, and both sisters have already discussed how they would show him their favorite toys. Until the girls could decide what to play, Zach looked at them with delight and thought that the sisters would always stay together. Exiled and Marion promised that when he grows up a little, they would always play with him. Marion was very grateful for the fact that Zek became part of their family and stay with them. At that moment, Zek realized what a great happiness is. Having a family nearby, which always cares about him and gives. The parents talked about a mysterious event called the Awakening, which seemed to be a very important rite. Gilbert's father treated everything with suspicion, and Lyra's mother inadvertently remembered Willie. He was Gilbert's brother. Gilbert praised Willie, saying that he has become a true knight. At the same time, Exiled wondered if Zek would be able to get around. However, the father recalled that awakening is an important rite for all the noble people, and Zek should choose to master magic or martial arts. Exiled did not want her brother to have high abilities, because it was because of this that their older brother Goethe was once taken to the magical academy. Since then, Goethe has been constantly studying and is almost home, because the system of assessment of abilities takes its entire time. Gilbert always believed in the talent of his son, but realized that he could not save him once. Now he firmly. In this world, talented children are taken away from the academy, and ZK did not want to say goodbye to the warmth of their family. Meanwhile, lying in his crib, Zek thought carefully his own capabilities and guessed that he could soon be interested in others. He has everything until tomorrow to do something. If he delay, he can be taken to experiments to the magic. Zek has always lacked the love and support that happen in a caring family, so he really wanted to stay at home. Suddenly the guy heard an unfamiliar voice. Someone turned to him, calling him a gentleman, and said that the assistant was already turned on. The assistant noted that the hero has not yet learned to use the evaluation eye, and this skill gives a huge advantage. He also suggested not to show his true status, because the one who is able to hide well has a more chance of success. The assistant remembered the special ability to hide his status. This immediately attracted the attention of Zek, but now he was not ready to turn it on, and did not even know what to do. The assistant advised to enroll in training. Maybe tomorrow this opportunity will appear. But Zek did not really believe that it would change something. The assistant noticed that the hero had 1,000 blessing points, but Zek still did not understand how they could use them. It turned out that these points can be used to activate various useful skills, such as to hide their own status. Zek already wanted to use these points right now, but his assistant warned, it is better to keep them because they would still be useful later. The boy was very afraid to lose his family, who sincerely loved him, so he decided to stay with them. The next day, Willie finally returned to the estate and felt joy to see the familiar walls of his home. His glory was so great that even the maids were genuinely happy when they saw him nearby. He was most pleased when he saw Lyre. Although they have not met for a long time, warm closeness prevailed between them. Willie smiled and told his brother that he would not worry. He has a very good wife, so there is nothing to be jealous. Lyra rejoiced in the birth of her son, and Willie sincerely congratulated them on this happy event. It was because of this that the hero went on the road. He sought to see the newborn with him. Willie, hugging the Zak, said that he would always stay with him. The baby looked around with anxiety, and Willie noticed as much as he looked like his beautiful mother. Indeed, Zek inherited not only Lyra's face, but also its rare eye color. Uncle Willie decided to take advantage of his evaluation eye to see what the baby has. Zek was frightened for a moment. His relative looked so carefully that the guy began to feel inconvenience and worry. The boy was in no hurry to show what he was capable of, although his father with his uncle was watching closely and waiting for. Finally, Uncle Willie said that the child has no special abilities, and Gilbert sighed. Zek was very pleased with this development and finally felt relief. Thanks to the ability to hide his true status, he showed only ordinary abilities, without giving his true strength. Willie said that the baby has the same traits as her mother, and that was even more pleased with the whole family. The parents sincerely thanked God for their prayers heard. Their son would now stay with them at home. Zak was glad because he managed not only to hide his true strength, but also to make his family pleasant. Now he could finally live quietly and enjoy what he lacked in his past life. At this time, Willie did not stop. Suddenly, magic began to rage around the Zak, and his back opened real wings made of pure energy. Willie considered the baby a real lucky because the wings were a sign of divine grace. But his father was only more disturbed. Zek could not believe heard. Uncle said that the baby had an extraordinary magical power. The boy felt that something was going wrong, though he did not quite understand how dangerous it could be. Willie said that Zek had much more magic than he had ever. The problem was that if the Ministry of Magic had learned about it, the guy would be taken away. Zek was stunned. He tried not to step on the same rake, but again found himself on the verge of losing freedom. Willie said it was a special child. His magical power is so great that it is even. The father heard, and anxiety appeared in the eyes of the mother. Zek wondered. Even with the crumb of luck that small, it is unlikely that he would be able to get out. Uncle believed that God himself gave Gilbert a special son, and immediately remembered the old legend of an angel who went down to the earth, and Willie suggested that the boy be sent to the academy, but Gilbert strongly disagreed with it. Zek did not want to leave this good family, but could not understand how to solve the situation. Lyra was very worried, but at the same time her heart was filled with joy, because she was proud that she was convinced that Zek would be extremely strong, and nothing. But no matter what, my mother begged to do her best to never get to the magical academy. Gilbert sincerely supported her, and promised that in all circumstances he would protect. The problem was that during the official check, their son would not be able to hide their true magic power. Willie suggested that you figure out what features the ZEK has and find out who it really is. At that time, ZK, listening carefully to adult conversations, Willie said that the most reliable is no one to discover the secret of the guy's power. After these words, Gilbert thought. In the end, the brothers agreed to keep their secret with them and pretend that magic did not exist. For the first time in his life, Zek realized that it was important to someone. This new and unusual feeling filled him with joy. Lyra was full of hope and sincerely dreamed that her son was always with her. Willie called all this the Secret of Five, and forced everyone to promise that they would not. But suddenly Uncle Cardos appeared at the door. He listened to their conversation, and it was very surprised by Gilbert. Two inquisitive sisters, Entiabold and Mariana, sat unexpectedly behind the door. Their dad did not expect that they would dare to. He strictly reminded the daughters that it is wrong and cannot be done. The girls began to intercede one by one, trying to get guilty. Willie smiled and wondered if they really worried about their. The sisters admitted that they did not want to part with their brother, and from the bottom of the heart, they pleaded guilt. Lyra thanked her daughters for his frankness and assured them that her dad and her uncle would do their best to protect Zek. The boy moved the care of his relatives, and tears appeared in his eyes. At this time, Willie seriously reminded the sisters. No one could say that they had just discussed. If someone breaks the promise, it will certainly. But even so, Zek was genuinely admired by his uncle, and it scared Mariana and Theobald. The girls promised that they would not tell anyone anything, and Willie called them real girlfriends. To his word. And Gilbert, meanwhile, smiled confidently. He did not hesitate for a moment. Further, Willie simply called everyone what his abilities had, as if they were not special, and so the government did not even think of inviting him to the magical academy. A few months have passed. The child has grown up, and with interest discovered anew. He remembered how hard his life was before, how much pain he had to endure. Now he felt truly happy, and even the one-eyed assistant stressed that only through his memory, Zek was able to remain part of the family. However, he had to give 444 blessings. The advisor recalled Zek that in his past life he was killed by accident, and now, in this new world, it has become true. The assistant said that God had chosen Zek. For the first time, the guy heard it, and although he still suspected it, the words did not leave his head for a long time. He still couldn't get rid of the thought, suddenly all this world is against him. Zek wanted to know more about what the adults were talking about, but the magic advisor refused to explain on this day. The boy was most fascinated by the books. He had a whole collection of magic textbooks for beginners which he admired. Madana's maid responded in surprise to his interest in books, so she decided to bring a few more exciting volumes. They liked the main character. Some miracle he understood their unfamiliar language, as if he had always had her. Now it was only necessary to learn how to own magic well, and the assistant promised to help with it. The last month has become a truly cognitive for Zek. He learned that there are 12 magical attributes in this world. To start using magic, at least he was surprised when he realized that combining different properties maybe create something completely new. Various types of strength. All this world of magic and hidden seemed true fantasy, but if the attributes do not fit each other, magic does not happen. Therefore, it is very important to choose their combinations correctly. Each magician has its own unique magic, and for those who just start learning, the most important is light. This force can accelerate the darkness, so it is best to work it at night, especially under the light of the moon. At that moment, the Zek remembered how in his previous life his path was illuminated by fireflies. This memory gave him the strength to come together. The boy focused, and he managed to create small magical fireflies, which immediately filled the room with bright light. He was overwhelmed by his joy. It was his first real victory, and it was the knowledge from the past world that Zek was delighted. For the first time in his life, he felt the true breath of the magical world, and he wanted to make such light, bright like the sun, so that his magical energy could illuminate everything around. But the light was so bright that he cut his eyes, so Zek decided to be careful in the future. But no matter what, the boy wanted to know even more about magical energy every day and to understand how it is arranged. At this time, Gilbert entered the room and was surprised by what he saw. His son did it. In the next room, Lyra spoke softly with Anna, casting her eyes on the portrait of her eldest son Gert. Suddenly, Gilbert was running into the room and happily announced that ZK could already stand on his feet on his own. Anna was surprised by the owner's behavior. It is not necessary to resist the room so loudly. But Gilbert was happy because he wanted everyone to see what his. Lyra, on the contrary, was gladly moved and was not offended at all. Pride blossomed in her heart. Zek was embarrassed from such unexpected attention. He realized that everything is because of his magic, but he was not sure whether it is normal. The father believed that the boy would soon take his first standalone steps, but Zek decided not to show his true skills. He was afraid that it could be He did not want to disappoint his mother, so he still got together with his forces and tried to take his first steps. It was difficult. His body was still small and awkward, but he was put into full. And finally, he was able to get to Mom's. Gilbert was very proud of his son's achievements and considered him a special boy. However, Zek himself did not want to differ. He did it only to entertain his parents. At that moment, a butcher emerged nearby and reminded Gilbert with a smile that he again avoided his responsibilities. He did not stop insisting that the owner would return to the office and finish the important job. Although Gilbert grunted, he still reluctantly agreed to go to work. Lyra gently reassured her husband, promising to take care of Zek. She reminded that he had many things like a master. The butterflies are frustrated, repeating that any case should be completed. Gilbert only apologized and went to his office. When he left, Lyra asked Anna to bring books for Zek. As it turned out, the maid had already prepared the necessary volumes. Zek dreamed of growing up as soon as possible to have more power for magic, and less often in uncomfortable situations. Mom, as always, advised to relax because the boy had to restore strength. Lyra was a gentle and caring mother. She was eagerly dreaming of the day she grows up, would become strong and happy. Zek jumped to his mother and immediately felt peace. Lyra smiled gently and promised him that her son would surely be the best in the world. In her eyes, it was possible to see something unusual. She sincerely wanted her son to raise a free man and did not obey the strict laws of her country. Lyra said he was special. He needs to become the strongest and most fond of always relying only on himself. Unexpectedly crying, she promised to always be near him. She wanted his dreams to come true, and he remained a free man. She tightly wrapped her son, and in her eyes a real concern was glowing. It was evident that she sincerely wishes him happiness. It seemed like this farewell. Suddenly, Lyra lost consciousness, not even having time to say anything. The maid who entered the room was so frightened that the books fell out of her hands. Anna tried constantly to bring the lady to her senses, but nothing happened. And the Zek, amazed at the events, could not understand what had happened. A few days passed, as the Gert Magical Academy was taken from his father. However, the guy didn't even want to listen to it. The pad still insisted that he read the letter. He was informed of his mother's death. For him, it became a painful shock. The guy heard this news and could not believe his ears. Everything seemed a terrible. He left all things at the academy and hurried home to make it to the funeral. The eldest son was full of hatred and sought the look. Everyone was amazed by the unexpected death of Lyra and hurried to express Gilbert's condolence. But Gerda could not believe it. It seemed impossible for him. The funeral was very sad. Willie sincerely regretted this loss and asked his brother to rest at least for a short time. But Gilbert only said in response, "What is all right with him?" However, Willie noticed that after the loss of his beloved wife, his brother seemed very exhausted. Gilbert could not sleep. Lara was not around, and he constantly thought of one thing. Now the main thing for him. Anna stayed with her children and tried to reassure them, though she barely kept. Zek thought his mother was seriously ill, but he could not believe that he had lost her right afterwards. Birth. Lyra was a gentle and beautiful girl. No one even suspected that Zek regretted that he did not have time to take advantage of the evaluation eye to be useful. Again, he felt as if he was not capable of anything, and his life goes the same track of failure. Alberto wondered in the way her brother, because he believes that now the best time for ever. The girl decided that Gerda, apparently, has already arrived, and now, most likely, says good. That's how it happened. Gerdas returned to the estate but did not talk to anyone, even with that. He was overwhelmed with anger and devastation, so he asked his sister to stay away and not talk. Suddenly, without holding back anger, he used magic against the little one. Zek Anna immediately stood up in defense of her younger son, and Zek could not understand why his brother suddenly attacked him. Gerda shot in the baby with lightning. His rage was incredible. He never hated so much. Anna was confused. Everyone around rapidly rushed to restrain the angry magician, because it was so dangerous that it could destroy not only Zek and Anna. However, the arrows still touched the boy, and then the sisters immediately ordered someone to help. Only healing magic could be saved here. But Gertie could not calm down. He shouted that Zeke did not interfere with him, accused him of the death of any mother, and dreamed of getting rid of his brother. Gertie was convinced that after the birth of the Zek's mother, her mother had deteriorated sharply. That is why he believed that his younger brother was. He was swept by such a strong rage that he did not want to listen to any explanation. The mind was completely clouded with anger. Alberto tried to stop the magician that came out, but the power of the blow was too big for him. He was also injured, though he wanted to protect. Just a few minutes passed as Gilbert and Willie burst into the room. They were stunned by what they saw. Willie immediately used healing magic, trying to save Anna and Zek, hoping that he had not yet been late. The father thanked the daughters for navigating so quickly, and Willie helped Anna and Zek recover after a magical attack. Willie was shocked by the act of his nephew. He appealed to Gilbert to isolate Gerda, because if so goes on, the next time he could reach. Holding the Zek in his hands, Willie could not believe how much disaster he had to endure this child in such a short time. Theobald and Mariana still couldn't hide their fear. They literally trembled. Willie looked back. Anna was heavily caught herself because she could not save the boy. She felt powerless and did not find a place. But Willie tried to reassure Anna, advising her a little. But Anna did not worry about her own condition. She took care of the health of the young owner. Her perseverance struck Willie, and he sincerely thanked her. Over time, the whole family tried to understand why Gertis did so cruelly. He had to understand that Zek was just a helpless infant who was not guilty of anything. But Gert was so angry that he did not pay attention to any words. Then Mariana asked, "How such a baby could— Mother?" Everyone was asked to calm down and think about everything, because, in their opinion, he was now mistaken. But the young magician managed to escape from the magic put, and he rushed again, trying to kill his— Mariana was frightened for her brother, and asked her father to protect the Zek from the angry Gerta. She swore to defend her younger brother at any cost, even if he had to become an enemy of Gert. Willie could not believe his eyes from the events that had unfolded before him. Why does he still say nothing and stop Jur? Gerda noticed that with the advent of Zek, the whole family began to worry only about him. He felt a guest in his own home. He was especially worried about how much Zek reminded him of his mother. He was convinced that because of Zek, he lost his mother's love, and that is, for him, his brother was no longer a man, just a monster. He swore never forgive Zek. While he was burning from hatred, the appearance of the girls immediately ran to him and started hugging, repeating how much they worried about him. Health. Uncle Willie was also worried about the little one, so he decided, stay next to him, even if you have to meet again with the hatred aura of his older brother. The prisoner was really scared of one appearance of Gert. He looked like a real crazy, as if he were okay to— Marie and T apologized to the brother that they could not save him because they did not have time for help. But Zek was not angry at them. Uncle Willie assured that from now on he would not let Gret to Zek and will be closely monitored by his nephew. The boy realized he could die if his uncle had not intervened on time. Unlike Gerda, the sisters really sought to support Zek and never reproached him because of his mother's death. On the contrary, they felt care and responsibility for him from— Marie was very tired after helping to cure her brother, so she decided to take a little nap. And Willie also advised them to find time to relax. T was very sad for her mother and often mentioned the times when they were together. She sincerely believed that Zek— before he stayed around. Everyone gathered together in the same room, and for a moment it seemed to be here, too, here, next to them. But Zek was aware that there was no other choice in this situation. Uncle Willie treated children with warmth as if they were his family. After all the difficulties experienced, everyone was finally able to rest. Only Zek did not find a place. Because of this, he could not say a word. When everyone finally fell asleep, Willie found a moment to talk to his brother. Just as he entered, he immediately asked how Greta felt, but the answer was disappointing. Gilbert tried to talk to his son, but he continued to blame the Zek of all troubles. Surprisingly, Gilbert understood why the guy was— in fact, he was confused. He did not understand how to cope with his own anger and the fact that Gerta actually wanted to kill his younger brother. Willie began to suspect that something was wrong with the Magic Academy. He shared it with Gilbert, and he agreed. After moving, Gerta changed significantly. Willie thought that the academy may be hiding something, which is why parents are not allowed to visit it. Gilbert sought to do something at once, but because of fatigue, he barely held on his feet. Willie picked up his brother and convinced him to rest a little. He promised to take care of the children while Gilbert recovers. But Gilbert could not restrain his anger because of his own powerlessness, and sought to know what had happened to his son as soon as— When his brother finally gave up and went to bed, Willie went outside. He was broken by the thoughts of Lara, Gilbert's powerlessness. But he believed in his own strength. He decided that even if all the enemies were hoping for the fall of their family, they would definitely be mistaken. The main thing is to stand to the end. After all the survivors, he realized how difficult his family lives. He decided to become stronger and wiser as soon as possible, so he began to study magical books carefully. He often remembered his good and gentle mother. Her image always lived in his heart, and it was because of these memories that he found strength for personal growth. With every new difficult spell that Zek was mastered, his joy only grew. Every little success. Purpose. 4 years have passed. The children grew up, and Zek learned to walk and talk freely. When T was preparing to go on a journey, wait. The sister looked at him in surprise, not understanding what he sought. And Zek heard that TA is a member of the Adventurers Guild and is now going to work out. He was unbearable to see it himself. With the help of his evaluation eye, he could see all the features of his sister. Now that she became a real adventurer, there were no secrets for him in her characteristics. But T refused to take him with him because she thought he was still too small for such dangerous. Zek refused, standing firmly on his own. He used magic, showing that he was able to protect himself. T was amazed. She could not believe that the baby could have such strength. Zek said he spent many years on book training and reading. However, he himself could not reach the higher level. The assistant was repeated that Zek wasted in vain, because he could not completely transform this energy. He is still on the path of development. To become stronger, it was easy to read books. You also need to fight the monsters. That's why Zek decided to start battles. Without this, he will not be able to approach the dream that his mother wanted to tell him so. T acknowledged that real development came with experience in battles, but it seemed that Zek was still too young for this. She could not understand why everything was in a hurry. The guy confessed that he was missing his strength now to protect others. This is the most scared of him, so he wants to become stronger. T remembered how in the past she asked Gerda to bring her with her, and promised herself to be so mistaken. She told the buttock to prepare a carriage, and reported that her brother would go with her. Zek was very pleased with this news. He sincerely thanked his sister, and she added, "It could be the first, and maybe the last time." T strictly warned her brother so that he was holding side by side and not leaving her, because it could be deadly for him. And Zek, despite all the caveats, was good at all to get to work out. On the way, T explained that their task was to catch white rabbits. She also warned, the forest is full of dangerous monsters, so it is better to hold the Zico with her back. Although today they only had to train in the lesson, and did not expect real dangers, the sister asked the Zek to try to really, and not lose his chance to. Zek was pleased to spend time with TA, because Marie always took care of him too much, especially after he was injured in his childhood. Zek always appreciated Marie's love, and never offended when she was too worried about him. From birth, he felt the warmth and support of his family. When they got the forest, everyone came out of the carriage and took up the preparation. T again appealed to Zek to stay away, because she did not want Marie to get. She instructed the servant of Handu to come after them in the evening and promised to talk to her father, so as not to worry him unnecessarily. When the carriage went, T wanted to see her friend Nicola and introduce him to her younger brother. Zek was glad that he could be with his sister. He cautiously but confidently took her hand, and it pleasantly surprised the girl. T gently looked at him and promised to be his protection today. They came to a good place where the fountain stood. Soon they reached the white forest. Zek was struck by the amazing beauty of this place. Ta said that because of the large amount of magic, all plants here are white. There are many monsters in this thicket, which is why it is a great place for beginners. T repeatedly reminded me not to be distracted and stay near her. They saw Nicola again, a strong and good-natured traveler who gladly joined the training with new acquaintances. Zek struck his unusual appearance. Nicholas did not expect to meet such a small adventurer. Zek calmly and politely introduced himself to the younger brother of Ta, and his beautiful manners surprised them. Nicholas promised to help and explain everything. T, watching it, asked him to treat her brother. Meanwhile, the Zak took advantage of his. Nicola reached the 17th level and had a rank D. He obeyed the elements of water and light, and of all physical characteristics, he had the most severe. He was only a year older than T and has already proven himself as a great fencer. His skills and traits were perfect for an adventurous D. Due to the emergence of the Zek, their plan has changed a little. T asked that she did not prevent her friend in advance and explained, her brother really wants to work out. Zek himself went into conversation and asked Nicholas to help him this day, because he had to increase his level and gain new skills. Nicholas noticed the determination of the boy and asked that he was able. But T noticed that Zek was still a baby. Despite this, Nicholas said the guy was cheerful and promised to support. He planted Zek on his shoulders and cheerfully suggested to go to look for monsters. T was worried, but Nicholas reassured her and said not to worry about the little warrior. The group dived further into the white forest and stopped in a cozy corner. Zek asked why they stopped. Maybe someone was waiting for them. T just smiled mysteriously. Nicholas shared that once Ta helped him to pay his sister treatment when he couldn't do it. He said he was going through difficult times, but Ta noted that she paid only for fencing classes. Nicholas thought that she exaggerated her mod. Zek was not aware of all the details, but still wanted to support a good adventurer. He promised to give all the. Nicholas sincerely thanked, but explained that the most important thing for the boy now is to become stronger and gain combat. The coach suggested that the coach prepare for the battle, but Zek asked him to give him some time. He wanted to work first, using his evaluation. It was time to learn how to fight. The first to come together was a white rabbit. He had the forces of fire and darkness, and he was able to inspire oblivion and suddenly attack. Thanks, Nicola wanted to support and distract the rabbit, but Zek chose another way. He decided to shoot from a long distance, not getting closer. Despite the distance, the beam got right. Nicholas was delighted. It was difficult for him to believe that the first-level child could shoot so accurately from such a distance. T explained that these are the fruits of many years of training. The first victory brought the Zak true joy. His fire struck even an experienced Nicola, who was passionate about saying that a real talent appeared in the T family. However, one rabbit was not enough. The level did not rise. So Zek decided to try to kill a few more monsters, and Nicola to use the windstorm for intelligence. She noticed that a group of white rabbits gathered in the northwest. Some unfamiliar creatures were also noticed next to them. Nicholas again took the Zak in his arms, and together they continued to move to their goal. TA asked Nicholas to hurry up and be careful with her brother. However, Zek has already overcome several more monsters. Finally, Zek rose to level 2. Nicholas was sure that now the boy feels true. Zek was so pleased with his victory that he even forgot to look into his characteristics. Zek noticed that his magic rose by another 50, and protection and luck increased by 20. He felt that he would soon be able to reach the level. Nicola, the experienced adventurer, was delighted. Zek was able to overcome 7 rabbits at one time. He immediately offered to train together, because it will be much more efficient. Nicholas joked that T seems to be inferior to his brother. The girl laughed and said that at first, let him meet their father. That's when she learns exactly what a real power is. Nicholas continued to be surprised because the TA family was capable of, but ZK quickly changed the topic because he did not want to open. He dreamed of reaching the 3rd level, but decided to postpone it for later. He thanked Nicola for his support, because he really learned. But at the moment they talked, a group of angry goblins suddenly jumped out of the bushes. Nicholas quickly commanded to retreat. But suddenly something unusual happened. The goblins did not rush into the attack, but simply ran past them, as if they were running away from even more threat. Suddenly, crunching the tree was shaking and it was about to fall. Nicholas quickly ordered the change. The giant tree fell and divided everyone. T was on one side, and Nicholas. The goblins reappeared and adventurers began to prepare for battle. T immediately realized it was a trap, because the goblins specifically divided their group. Although these creatures looked wild, they behaved surprisingly reasonably. T was in the most difficult position, the real king of goblins. The girl scared to Nicholas so that he would grasp the gun, and then with him, otherwise they would all die. A real giant monster appeared in front of the frightened TA, King Goblin himself. She had no idea how this creature managed to walk secretly from the quiet forest to the white. The king usually wears armor, but this time was without them. He may have lost them in a recent battle. T thought that the monster had made its way through the protective barrier, fled from the quiet forest and now standing right in front of her. At this time, Nicholas with Zek stood among the angry goblins, King Goblin rushed forward with the attack, but T cleverly bounced away. However, the girl realized, to overcome, she dared to distract the enemy so that friends could escape. There was no other choice. She remembered how she promised to protect the younger brother. Nicholas also got into trouble. There were many monsters around him, and there was nowhere to go. It was at this moment that Zek showed true skill. He rushed forward and instantly struck several enemies with a powerful wave. Light. Nicholas could not believe his eyes. He did not expect a little, but this spell took too much strength. ZK realized that his magical forces are still too small, and the body did not have time to get used to new opportunities. He was so weak physically that he could lose consciousness at any time. Even if he manages to stay in the face, Zack didn't want to give up. He gathered the last forces of magic and decided to attack again, hoping to destroy all the monsters at once. At that moment, T closely followed the King of Goblin, looking for where he was the most vulnerable, and tried not to get under his blows. It happened suddenly. A strong blow made her shudder and retreat sharply. It happened so suddenly that even experienced TA could not do anything. The monster attacked her when she did not expect it at all. When Zack heard his sister shouting, he immediately rushed to her. But Nicholas managed to run up, grasp the Zekier, and close it from him. The adventurer realized that things were going very bad. The forces left him, and in the meantime, King Goblin himself was all. With the help of the evaluative eye, it was possible to see the weak place of the monster. It was right in the middle of the forehead, under the helmet. It was necessary to focus all power. Zek decided to act on the verge of his capabilities to force this monster to regret everything. The most important thing now is to help the wounded TA, which is already completely exhausted after. She remembered how she had not been able to stop Goethe and save Zek, and this mention still hurt somewhere in her heart. T merged because of her weakness and indecision, but now she wanted to change everything. She knew well why her brother was trying to become stronger, and now she could not afford to give up. She understood for herself. This is not the end. It will fight to the very end. A few seconds before Zek, a giant monster ran up, but the magical force Delight. T quickly applied the spell and stopped King Goblin, preventing him from approaching his brother. They tried to protect themselves, creating a light barrier, but the monster immediately used magic and accelerated her movements. She came closer to the enemy and applied the swirl. Her attack was truly strong. Nicholas was amazed. He did not even imagine that TA could do so much harm. However, the monster has not fell. Then Zack turned to Never and asked him to throw Goblin's head. He was going to hit right in the most vulnerable place. The adventurer was surprised, but the boy's confidence made him trust. In a moment, Nicholas threw the Zek directly towards Goblin. He came closer, and the boy gathered all his magical power and hit the helmet. A bright ray of light suddenly fell on the monster, and he immediately struck from unbearable pain. The pain pierced the whole body. The fiery a weak place. After that, the monster fell to the ground, lifting everyone was frozen in place. No one believed that the battle was really. Zeke, barely holding on his feet, felt the true joy of winning victory. As the assistant warned, the guy completely lost control of his body. He fainted and fell on the floor, and Nicholas did not. At the last moment, T managed to run up and support the Zek, preventing him from. She softened the fall slightly and immediately asked if everything was well with him. Zek reassured his sister and said that everything was fine with him, so I don't have to worry. T apologized to him because through her he got into. However, Zek was glad. Even the injury did not overshadow the feeling of victory. He sincerely thanked his sister for her courage and for saving him. T firmly pressed her brother and said that this time they both helped each other stand. Nicola wanted to cure them, but he was already lacking. Zek thanked, though he was upset that he could not defeat the monster on his own. The adventurer could not understand who the Zek was actually, and how he managed to solve the weakness of King Goblin so easily. However, T confidently said that they could not share this information for the sake of security. Nicola was a little upset, but Ta explained that he should defend her younger brother in all circumstances. The experienced warrior silently agreed, knowing that it was really the best choice. Zack, in response, asked you never how he feels. Nicholas said that his wounds were only small scratches, and suggested going to truly important issues. He was shocked, because he just saw with his own eyes how the child defeated King Goblin himself. Now his confidence has shaken very much. Nicholas promised that he would not tell anyone about this battle, and T thanked him sincerely for it. The adventurers asked Zek about his reception, and the guy replied that it was a fire spear. Nicola was struck by the power of this spell, because it was able to defeat a real. Zek rejoiced that he was able to attract the attention of an experienced warrior, and his candid words have ever. The smile appeared on his face. But even after the victory, the ZK was well aware that he was a real monster. Inside, he was still afraid to die for the second time, and remain The assistant said that Zek is better left behind, because now his life goes in a new, completely different world. But it was very angry with the guy. But the assistant praised him for his achievements. He increased his level and was able to defeat a high-class monster. Zek is really special. He managed to survive where others would have surrendered. Now he feels more confidence. God really chooses his pets, and Zek became one of them, having got the opportunity to become stronger. Once upon a time, he heard such words from Uncle Willie, but he did not listen to them before. It seemed to him that he was only suffering but now he has a real opportunity. He can become strong and protect everyone he loves. Zek swore anything to get incredible power so that no one could suffer. A few days before the battle with King Goblin, one group of adventurers transported an important cargo through a quiet forest. Suddenly, a strong blow turned the carriage, and everyone around was frightened. They were stunned when King Goblin himself appeared from thick thickets. Covered with horror, everyone rushed. They did not even try to save the product. They just left everything and fled to fear. Inside the valuable cargo was a toddler of the Holy Tiger. A few months passed, and Zek and his family went hunting again. This time, he confidently dealt with white rabbits. He decided to raise his level step by step and enjoyed hunting, showing his Marie, as always, was amazed at the power of her brother and with every opportunity embraced him with all his love. Marie was very pleased with the achievement of Zek and sincerely wished him to become the strongest hero in this world. She said that her brother is the world's sweetest creature, and she would. Filbert noted that Zek was very reminiscent of him, and Uncle Willie agreed. The guy had really strong magic. My father and his uncle decided that the usual magic for Zek would be enough, and at this time the guy tried to escape from the strong embrace of his too lively sister. The whole family was fascinated by how quickly the young magician made a step forward, and ZK great. Marie, as always, was proud of him most of all and did not want to give T the championship in caring about Zek. All the details of how the King Goblin won was hidden to protect the guy. Gilbert said the investigation of the wreckage was not yet completed, and asked Alberto to closely monitor the Zek. The guy was glad that his father was able to settle everything properly. Now no one would know about the monster. Marie was delighted with her brother and did not hide her emotions. Even when he tried to escape, she still hugged him and insisted that he was not shy. But here, Zek noticed how something was moved in the bushes, and immediately became interested. He instantly rushed to the ground to find out what caused this noise. Marie did not want this, but only her father's intervention kept her from rushing. Gilbert reassured Zek, saying that everything was safe in the White Forest, and allowed him to take a little stroll. Marie still worried and found no rest, even after his words. She suddenly felt anxiety and realized that her brother had happened. Gilbert and Willie were no longer surprised by such behavior. After Gert tried to kill Zek, Marie almost always kept near him. Willie asked T how she was feeling. She briefly answered that she had already become easier. She said she believed that ZK lives properly, and minor wounds are a common part of getting acquainted with life and experience. Willie agreed and said that the boy needed to be overseen, but he should not be closed in the room as if he were imprisoned. But now you can't let it beyond the barrier, otherwise you will have to look for it throughout the forest. Meanwhile, the Zak himself went in search of a monster, and he still managed to find what he sought for so long. In front of him was a wounded sacred tiger, a rare animal that was now so weak that she could not cause her icy lightning. Zek was amazed when a sacred beast appeared before him. He immediately took advantage of the translation magic to turn. He could not explain how this rare creature was in the forest alone, without any supervision. Judging by the wounds, it is evident that he met with King Goblin and miraculously remained alive. Now, Zek stood carefully, trying to show that he did not want evil, but the tiger still bit him with his hand. Despite the pain, the young man did not stop. He used medicinal magic, and his heavy wounds began to heal gradually. In a few minutes, the tiger became calmer and no longer showed aggression. Zek promised the beast that now nothing would happen to him. As a token of gratitude, the beast began to lick the boy's hand. The young magician felt amazing how gentle and fluffy the wool of this creature was in front of him. Was a little baby. Zek noticed how a very frightened tiger. Something terrible happened to him, and it was close to death. The baby remembered how he was held in the cage hunters. Then he felt like the thing they were being sold. When Zek noticed tears in the eyes of the beast, he gently hugged him and quietly reassured him, glad that he could support a defenseless creature. Tiger looked at the boy and said that he was really a good man. It promised that he would At first, Zek did not understand what happened, but the magical assistant quickly explained to him. They had just concluded a contract. The guy asked why the tiger was so tied to him and asked to explain it. The assistant explained that it was a blood agreement with a sacred tiger. Exchanging blood with the monster, Zek was able to tie him to himself. Although it was difficult for him to believe that only one drop of blood led. At that moment, Marie approached her brother and noticed something unusual. She was frightened when she saw that in his hands a real monster. When the children returned home, Gilbert decided that they had brought a black cat from the forest. Zek explained that the tiger was white, and he met him in the white forest, so he decided to take it with him. The father lifted his eyebrows in surprise, but decided that the animal had left its home because of the destroyed magic. Zek decided to remain silent that he was a sacred tiger, because he knew. If his father found out, now it was necessary to find a way to persuade Dad to let him leave the beast. Zach, not inventing anything, just asked for permission to take a tiger home as his pet. Marie did not agree because she believed that the monster was too dangerous. But Zek said he would try to talk to him, and reminded that he was already injured. The sister was worried that the bitten wound could cause infection, but the guy reassured her, saying that the tiger was very gentle. She remained unwavering, but Zek begged to leave him. It made the father think. Finally, Gilbert asked his son whether he remembered that he was responsible for the one who had tamed. Zeki confidently promised that he was responsible for himself. My father agreed to leave the monster and asked Marie to support her brother's dream. Zek was delighted and thanked her sincerely, and the tiger smiled happily. Gilbert asked how the beast was felt, and then praised his son for being able to cure him with magic. Marie did not like that the monster had settled in their house, but she did not dare to give her dad. She promised to look after her brother, because her safety was the most important. When the tiger appeared in the house, Marie looked after him carefully, although the baby was not aggressive at all. However, the caring sister thought it was just a deception. Even the best monster was still dangerous for her. Constant observation was greatly tired of Zek, so he decided to combine his magical power with the magic of tiger. The guy carefully slipped out of his sister's watchful eye and turned to the monster with a proposal to start training. Tiger looked at him in surprise. Zek said that he recently restored his magical abilities and now seeks to train hard. He had to become strong as soon as possible to protect his loved ones. The little tiger was genuinely surprised, because he never met good people before, only harsh and cruel. But next to the honey he realized, his master is special, not like everyone else. Stunned by such care, Tiger gently hugged the guy and began to ask him to smile more often. Zek promised to help, and his older sister was watching his every step. For Marie, her brother remained a child who perceives a monster as a simple toy for fun. She remembered how Gert was attacked on Zek, and now she was afraid to leave him alone for She decided to focus only on good thoughts because she believed that thoughts had power, so she did not look out of her brother. Tiger was friendly to all and, seeing Marie, wanted to play with her, but Zek asked Tiger to go back. Late in the evening, the guy felt the fatigue of his whole body, but in his soul was joyful. Usually, his sister visited him at bedtime, but this time she made an exception and did not come out. Zek thought that no one would worry him, so he decided to make magic. But suddenly Marie flew into the room and strictly told him to go to bed. The guy looked at the girl in surprise, because usually at this time she had been sleeping for a... The sister said she could not fall asleep and asked to stay with him. It surprised the guy. She asked if she could lie near him, and Zek was so confused that she didn't know what to answer. Marie hugged her brother firmly and fell asleep immediately. and Zack was still surprised. Now even at home, he remembered how he found the wounded tiger and took him to him. At first he was worried that the baby could scare or harm someone, but these fears were— Now that the baby slept nearby, Zack understood that it would not be so easy to train alone. Even so, he sought to become a true monster hunter and raise his level, because only so you can become truly strong. His abilities and magical power were not yet like, so he decided to train quietly so as not to disturb anyone around. Breaking his sister's arms, he turned on the acceleration and finally felt the long-awaited freedom. It was his first time he was able to take advantage of a new ability, and it was the White Forest turned to him into a real training ground, and now it was only necessary to move forward and improve their skills. The tiger immediately warned, "If the sister wakes up and he will not be near, she will be very angry." Zack reassured everyone, promising that everything would be fine, and the tiger told to stay. Then he used the magical acceleration again and quickly left the room. The little tiger, staying with Marie, wanted to sleep or sit quietly. The beast was almost hesitant to follow his owner. Meanwhile, the label had already reached the White Forest. He felt severe fatigue because several times in a row he used the but there was very little time, so the guy decided not to waste a second and use every He understood that the higher you have, the more magical power you can control. Now he had to find out where the boundary of his own capabilities pass. This time, Zek took advantage of the spell of the icy blockade, and within a moment it was a real victory. Magic worked. Inspired by his success, the guy decided not to stop and continue to train. He applied the spell of the Thunder Demon, and suddenly something amazing happened. The spell caught. A spooky figure appeared in front of the Zek's eyes, very similar to the older brother of. The monster seemed like a real demon, and not even understanding the situation to the end, he gathered with courage and The dark creature suddenly rushed in response, and the guy was so frightened that he began to be pleased to. However, once again, he was able to disperse the ghost that was so similar to his brother. After the darkness was dispelled, Zek did not leave fear. He was truly creepy. He trembled his hands and the whole body became powerless. He fell to the ground, understanding how dangerous this magic. The assistant explained. The guy fainted because his magical energy was completely exhausted and his forces were left. Waking up, Zack felt surprised because he had not returned to his room so far before his sister woke up. He reproached himself for his own weakness and realized that he should not yet use such strong magic. The guy remembered how in his childhood, while near his mother, he felt some unusual power. But then his brother came and immediately accused. In those moments, Zek covered real fear. He felt completely defenseless when a white rabbit approached him. At this time, the residents of the estate had already learned that the guy disappeared, and all together began to look for him. Maid Anna decided to inspect the right wing of the building once again, and Theo used the magic of the wind to explore the nearby surroundings. The Theo decided it was necessary to look more broadly, because the Zyke could not go far with the tiger. At this time, Marie could not understand why her brother went without saying anything. She thought, did she suddenly take away that? At that moment, the maid hurried to say that someone noticed a magic tiger who ran out of the estate. He jumped out of the host room window and rushed straight in the direction of the White Forest. At first, the maid decided that she just thought, because everyone in the house had to sleep, so she didn't say. But Marie did not delay. She immediately went in search, because she had to find her. She rushed forward so quickly that she didn't even pay attention to other people's words or warnings. As always, her heart was full of anxiety behind Zek. But a few hundred meters to the lake, she noticed a familiar figure. The little tiger carefully carried on his back of the unconscious Zek. Marie stared at the kid enthusiastically. Fear and surprise was fighting inside her. When she came closer, she heard he was breathing quietly and realized that the guy was not dead, but simply lost consciousness. The girl, without thinking, used medical magic, because she firmly decided to save. A few minutes passed, and the Zek opened his eyes, feeling his pleasant warmth. Marie could not restrain her tears of happiness, and the guy tried to remember what had happened. Zek sincerely apologized for his ill-advised act, and Marie hugged her brother and confessed with warmth how much she worked for him. It was at this moment that his father appeared. He looked carefully at his son and became convinced that Gilbert was genuinely happy, learning that his son had returned alive after a night adventure in the White Forest. Although it was quite Marie could not understand why her brother decided to go there in the middle of the night. Zack only said it was his own choice. She did not stop asking him, and he did not dare to reveal the mystery of his mighty magic, afraid to scare her loved ones. The guy could not say anything, and his father stood side by side and remained silent. Finally, Gilbert decided to punish his son and left him under house arrest for 2 weeks. In addition, he appointed the supervisor for his son. Now the Zek will be kept under supervision. Gilbert said that his son was an unusual child, from whom a lot was waiting, so he may have had a serious reason to leave the house at night. Even if you hide something, don't worry. The family will always be near and support you. The father reminded the Zek that everyone in their family is strong, so he should not be left alone with his anxiety. The words he heard the ZK deeply struck him. He suddenly realized that his family was able to take care of him, and he no longer needs to be left alone. The guy said he wanted to train his magical abilities without interfering with his aspirations. He confessed that he always dreamed of getting stronger to be able to protect himself. The father reminded him of the difficult times that his mother has experienced so that his son remembers. But Marie asked not to mention the painful past, and assured her brother that she would not happen to. Gilbert gently mowed his daughter to himself, and assured the children that he would always be nearby. Zek lay in bed and remembered how he spoke with his father. He became ashamed, for everyone noticed his tears. After he frankly shared his feelings, it became easier for him. He has a new desire to grow and become stronger, even when there are many strong people around. The guy decided not to hide his fears and doubts in himself, but to start telling their relatives sincerely. He also felt gratitude for a little tiger who helped him get out of the forest. If it weren't for the tiger, everything. In response, the tiger smiled slyly and said, "If you really want to thank me, scratch my tongue." Zek could not resist before the request, and started playing with a new friend. But suddenly he remembered that he had not even. It was not easy to call the holy tiger, so the guy said he wanted to find the name that the tiger himself would love. After several attempts, he decided to name the khaki tiger. The baby rejoiced. Zek sincerely considered Khaki his best friend, and the tiger was glad to find such a good owner. Meanwhile, Gilbert was sitting in his office, and in the imagination communicated with his late wife, sharing with her new. Looking at the picture of the liar, the head of the family confessed that Zek was growing up with a very talented boy, one whom the world did not know yet. But the memories were suddenly broken. Alberto and Vila were tapped to the office. The eldest son has important news about the White Forge. At first he thanked everyone for his support, and then shared the story of the magic ash, which was found a few months ago. After the investigation, it became clear that the ashes left goblins. This means that the protection of the forest was broken, and monsters broke into the White Forest. Uncle Willie wondered in surprise, who could overcome the monster of rank B? But all those present understood. Gilbert has thought a little, and remembered only one name. It was his youngest son. He remembered how Theo told what happened in the forest, and showed wounds that struck all present. Willie wondered how such an experienced magic adventurer was able to get into trouble in a place where nothing was usually thrown. Alberto decided that Theo was actually defending Zek, and this idea even liked Willie. However, his father still could not understand how his son was able. If everything happened, you can't just ignore this event. It could change the fate of the world. Alberto recalled how the ashes flew to the city center, and it was then that rumors began to spread about the mysterious. So that no one knows the truth, he rumored that it was all the case of the captain of the first detachment. Never. Willie thanked Nicola for his honesty and reliability, because it was thanks to him that he managed to hide everything. Uncle carefully gathered all ashes to use it, while the main ingredient to create a new magic stone. Gilbert thanked his brother for his support, and asked him to look at the Zek. Alberto gladly agreed to help. Willie mentioned that Zek was always distinguished among others, did not look like his brother hurt. All from childhood they noticed what the most important thing is not to reveal the special abilities of Zek to save him from danger. Gilbert dreamed of all for everything so that his son grew free and not dependent on insidious officials or greedy people. Looking at the photo of his wife, he promised to fulfill their common dream. To give Zek peace and a peace. The father sought to correct the mistakes of the past, so he began to ask how the monsters were hunting. Alberto at first thought that only Theo and Zek were guilty of everything, but eventually realized responsibility lies. Gilbert realized that Zek was no longer small. He went to the White Forest himself, and it showed his adulthood. Willie decided that Zek could probably use a teleporting stone, although such a stone costs too much. So now Alberto recalled that he had long dreamed of seeing how the Zek was beating, but last time At first, Gilbert did not immediately understand what it was about. but then remembered the magic stone that kept all. He really made Zek on the video, and Alberto wanted to watch this entry. Just a few minutes passed, and everyone was watching a video, where Zek carefully helps the wounded tiger. Alberto glowed. Everyone was watching the record, and Willie made sure that no one would distract others, so it went on. The next day, the family decided to teach Zek magic on their own. Willie suggested that he first show that he was able. Uncle remembered how he once taught all the older children except Hurt. Now he promised that Zek would not have been easy. The guy could not believe his happiness. He could not imagine that he could learn from such. Willie rejoiced in the guy's perseverance and warned him. Magic does not tolerate laziness. Zek looked closely at his uncle, quickly realizing what a person was, and was already quite ready to start training. This night, ZK carefully explored the abilities of his mentor. Uncle Willie was 60 levels, owned 3 powerful elements, and had a mysterious spirit of the wind. The boy's eyes were curious, because Willie had many different skills, and was able to use any weapon. Zach did not hide his surprise. Should enemies be afraid of such a brave and strong magician? Although he did not know true mighty magic yet, the young magician decided that he would make every effort to. The most mysteries caused the wind of the wind. The Zek has never encountered something like that. Meanwhile, Willie looked at his student. Zek's ability impressed him more and more. Although the guy could not be teleported, his magical power was much stronger than expected. Willie felt that learning a magical spell promised to be interesting and complete surprise. Suddenly, Khaki appeared. He was proud of a branch that he specifically got from the highest tree, hoping that he would praise him. Willie, seeing the animal from the video, immediately realized who it was and looked interested in Tiger. Zach. The kid said that his name is Khaki, and he called Willie Redhead. Uncle was even more intrigued. Willie first saw such white, like snow, wool, and still noted in Khaki signs of Islai's strength, lightning and ice. He praised Tiger for the unusual combination of the elements, and after that Khaki thought that this person really had a good heart. Zach was glad that he managed to hide the true power of Khaki. But even so, Willie noticed in the body of the beast a mysterious flow of. Uncle asked if he could touch Khaki. The tiger nodded as a sign of consent, but at the same time Willie noticed the remnants of a strong spell and warned, if nothing is done, the magical flow could stop. The guy was sure that Marie was able to cure Khaki, but his uncle said it was not enough. It turned out that the animal is still gravitating a strong curse that has not disappeared even after treatment. Zek turned on his evaluation eye and was surprised in surprise. He did not even. The guy apologized in Khaki, but Willie carefully reassured him, explaining, even experienced magicians difficult to recognize such a difficult spell. Willie noticed a strange energy around him. It was a curse that he could not determine. He asked Khaki to give a little wool. It was to help find the sorcerer. The White Forest has already left a magical trace. Due to the curse, Khaki lost the ability to use magic. Zek did not reflect on how he could help. Willie said that it can be removed with a special cleansing spell, but it does not work well. Zek realized that he was lacking in knowledge and years would take years. However, he remembered the advice of his father. If it is difficult, do not shy. The guy got courage and decided to share with his uncle what he could come in handy. Marie was very worried about the little tiger and sincerely wanted to help him. Willie recalled that the girl recently learned to use the magic of purification. Perhaps it will be able to remove the curse. Marie was still hesitant because her magical strength was very little. However, Willie assured her that even the fact that she was able to use magic at that age is already a real rarity. Although the girl hesitated, she still decided to help and try to save her favorite pet. It turned out that Marie was still protecting the magical stone of purification that her mother gave her before she departed. She confessed that she could only manage the light at first, but over time she made a lot of effort and learned the magic of purification. Although, when it happened, as soon as the first success appeared, her mother's condition suddenly deteriorated, and even powerful magic could no longer help her. It was after the birth of the Zak that Mom seemed to be filled with life again. Special power was hidden in the stone, and Marie kept it for a truly. Finally, the moment came when a chance to save Khaki, to release him from the vicious curse. But when the ZK stretched out a stone, Tigerney refused to take it. It did not want to be sacrificed. Marie could not hide her astonishment, and Zek, meanwhile, explained that Khaki was too valuable to use only for her own. The girl, frustrated to the heart, told the animal that she had long dreamed to apologize for her doubts and fears. She confessed sincerely. Khaki became a native to them, and so she really wants to help him get rid of this curse. Tiger, feeling support and understanding, finally agreed to accept help. Then Marie took and activated. Kaki was in a cleansing light, and magic was flowing from the stone, like warm water from the source. The baby began to mourn joyfully. It seemed that the invisible burden. Willie confirmed that the flow of magic works again. Zek sincerely thanked his sister from all over the heart. Uncle suggested that Kaki try his hand and called him to create light snow. The cat waved his paw lightly, and at the same moment the gentle white snow began to fall around. Everyone was delighted as if they were in the midst of a real winter fairy tale. Kaki gladly circled in the snow, and Zeke offered to make a great snowman. Tiger did not understand what it was a thing, so the guy decided to show him how to sculpt snow. But Marie warned, "It is better not to." Everyone was joyful. A cheerful laughter was heard, and Willie looked with pleasure how happily. Uncle moved and announced that he would postpone the class to tomorrow to celebrate Kaki's recovery. At this time, they were quietly watching a girl who also dreamed of playing with Zek and become part of this friendly company. Zek, along with Kaki, invented fun. They launched magic and shot it in the snow, trying hard. Both were skillfully holding on their strength, so the snow with magic remained cool. The game went perfectly. The happy gun has tightly wrapped his fluffy friend. Today they succeeded as best. Meanwhile, Willie went to see his brother and advised his nephew to work a little in magic. Before leaving, his uncle looked at the Zek once again, and noticing his success, he nodded. When Willie saw with Gilbert, he shared that he had just returned after the workout. The father asked how the son of the case, and Willie said that Zek was very talented and trying most. A few months have passed, and he noticed that the guy had a real enthusiasm. Zek always tries to repeat even the most. However, Zeka is most striking, because it is thanks to her that he is able to create real miracles, similar to magic. Willie confessed to his brother, who sometimes tries to understand what he thinks. But Gilbert immediately banned it. He did not want to. First, the Zek should be trained to control your magic, and then you can think about exit to the outside world. The brothers were surprised to see what the tiger was capable of, and agreed that the holy was always interesting and fun with the honey. Willie thought that maybe Kaki had already been catching poachers. He probably suffered a lot of suffering. Remembering the rumors of imperial auctions where they sold rare creatures, Gilbert decided to further strengthen the protection at the borders. Hunters clearly aimed at this rare beast, and now it will be interesting to look at how it will develop further. Gilbert was most concerned about the safety of her family, so he asked his brother to be careful. He said Kaki is very friendly and sweet. He quickly became part of their family. Willie did not consider this kindness something bad, because Gilbert himself. But Gilbert disagreed and poured a whole bunch of love letters on the table. They were all written for Willie. He understood how well known his brother, but still asked to find a way to cope with this flow of letters. If not, he threatened to send him to the magical detachment. However, Willie firmly abandoned such an award. Meanwhile, Zek trained his magical forces in the forest, but he constantly interfered with something. He could create different elements but could not keep them in a stable state, and it was the guy dreamed of mastering the art of making glass stones, because this would open his way to the study of the strong. He turned to Marie and asked if she would allow her stone to use again. But Marie replied that it is now a regular glass. She told that it was a common stone which was once invested in a special magic, and that's how it became holy. However, if you fill the stone with fresh magic, it will start working again. This is possible even with mighty magic. Such glasses are much stronger than usual, so they are ideal for the manufacture of universal magical vessels. Zek realized that if he does a few more creatures, he would be able to use different types of magic, even when tired. This is how he can fight even when the situation is very difficult. In addition, he planned to mix magical sand into the stone. The guy gathered all the courage and strength, after which he tried to create a stone again. He almost reached his own, but at that moment he lost control, and everything was destroyed. It was very upset. He could not understand what he had done wrong. Then the assistant advised him to look at the Zek was sure that this sand is special because Willie brought it for training. The assistant noted that although the sand is really high, it is still not suitable for stone S. To create such a stone, you need to take the sand of the right quality. Otherwise the magic simply will not be able to. The assistant proposed to try to find sand in the forest of silence. And even better, to go in search. Zeke first learned about this place, so he decided to find out more about him, and asked to tell. The assistant said that in that forest the earth is endowed with charming fertility, and from there it is possible to get the necessary sand. He also suggested to carry them through the forest and become a guide. The assistant immediately offered to go to the forest of the spirits, but the Zack hesitated. Suddenly, a strong wind was rising. Suddenly, an unfamiliar female voice was heard. A cheerful girl exclaimed that she had finally found him. An unknown girl appeared in front of the boy, a young, beautiful, and confident. In her look, she had the feeling that she knew his. She quickly ran and hugged the young magician. He was confused, trying to release The stranger said that she heard a lot of interesting things about him, so she immediately decided to come to this meeting. Zack was a little confused by her words. Kaki immediately rushed to the rescue. He jumped the girl on his head and hardly demanded that she immediately release his owner. However, the girl had already heard about this. She even dredged to call Kaki a true sacred white tiger, although she knew well that it should be secret. Tiger asked her to keep it secret, and she sincerely promised not to tell anyone. Zack could not understand how this loud stranger knew about him so much, because they have never. At this point, Willie approached and seriously asked the girl not to deal with his nephew. He sharply broke up the arms and pushed the Zack, giving him the opportunity to finally breathe. The stranger was upset because her happiness was cut off sharply, and Willie sincerely asked for their unexpected meeting. Uncle said that her name is Frau, and she is the spirit of the wind with which he concluded a magical treaty. At that moment, Zack remembered the unusual figure and the characteristic. Willie reassured the boy, and explained that once spirits and people were at odds, but from Frau everything is different. She is good. The girl immediately said that she was polite only with those who like her. She is especially gentle with such lovely guys as Zack. The guy was surprised because he realized a girl can also see through camouflage magic, just like Willie was very surprised to learn that his nephew sees Frau, because ordinary people do not notice it. He asked the Zack not to tell anyone about the girl, and the guy promised. Frau asked if she was really the first spirit that the guy met. Zack nodded, and the girl smiled awkwardly and blushed. She was pleased to be the first for him. The guy was in no hurry and still behaved with caution. Then she promised to always be his protector, because Willie cares for him, and she will always stay nearby. She looked at this boy with interest, because, although he was still young, it looked not childish. Willie warned Frau that she only allowed her to get acquainted with her nephew rather than flirting. From these words, Frau felt the. Zack asked Uncle that he was wrong with her, and Willie replied, Frau simply did not understand what personal space was. The spirit girl tried to explain her behavior. She rarely sees people that every meeting evokes her strong emotions. But Willie thought that she would be too noticeable in the city. Zack agreed with that, and promised to reveal her something interesting. The meeting was so captured by Frau that she decided to prepare an unexpected gift for Zack. It was pleasantly. A cheerful girl promised that he would get to him the magic sand he needed. But now she has no sand. She still searches. The girl also explained Willie that the guy was very strong, so ordinary sand would not fit. It is suitable for training, but ZK dreams of creating a real magic stone, so it needs the highest quality material. Willie praised the boy for their efforts, but after reflection he confessed he could not offer good sand. Willie could not give the nephew magical sand, because he was waiting for a very important business that he had no right to post. He sincerely apologized to Zack, but he was not offended. He knew perfectly well that his uncle's work was always of great importance to him. There was so much unusual in the laboratory that Frau wanted to help Zack. However, Willie stopped her, explaining that her appearance could scare people. Even in the human likeness, she could not control herself, so she could not act on her own. It upset Frau, because she really wanted to impress the Zack. The young magician decided to go to the magic group himself so as not to bother others. The uncle was surprised by Zack's determination, but did not stop him. Zack decided to see everything. Frau was incredibly admired by his courage, because it was his first. Willie believed in the talents of his nephew and enabled him to act at his own discretion. It inspired the guy. He had long dreamed of seeing true magical experiments, and he has now had the opportunity. Kaki really wanted to go with everyone, but his uncle did not allow. He worried that such an unusual creature could interest people in the laboratory. Tiger is clear that the arguments are very convincing, so she decided to stay at home and wait for her master. Willie promised to tell Gilbert about it and asked Zack to be careful on the road. Marie carefully held Kaki in her arms and warned her brother that the danger could wait anywhere. Theo praised him for bravery and wished a successful trip. It was a moment to show what he. The Bogretsky Hans said that all the preparations were completed, So Zek warmly said goodbye to his family and promised that he would definitely return. He happily rushed to his crew because new exciting adventures were waiting for him. Zek was looking forward to when he finally came to the capital, because it had to be his first date with this majestic city. Hans remembered how they hunted the monster once with Theo, but decided not to go into details, calling it their little secret. The Noiretsky explained that the third magical order, which is governed by the word master, is considered the best in both science. After that, he apologized that he spoke so much and added that they would soon be able to see the. This is exactly how it happened. From the window, the landscape opened to a brilliant city, which is spread over the sea. Hans explained that the magical structure is located on the western outskirts of the capital, and the main research base is located in a secret place. He thought that Zek did not need this knowledge, though he dreamed of meeting his uncle. Hans did not stop his story, and then asked not to tell the extra, then laughed. Finally, the Zek reached the charming building, but Hans was left on the street. Only a young magician could go inside. Anna and Hans wanted to go with Zek, but the Butursky assured them that everything would be fine, and promised that nothing would happen to them. Anna was dissatisfied, but Zek reassured her. He suggested that she stay in the capital and relax, and the guy was a little nervous because of a mysterious girl who walked next to him, but she reassured him, promising that everything would be fine. Zek was not worried about anything but one: as soon as possible to get to the research center. However, the girl warned him. A dim and dangerous passage awaits them ahead. The strong wind was frightened by the Zak, and the girl confidently moved forward without even rotating. The guy had to hurry up. Finally, a huge dark door appeared before his eyes. The guy felt an anxiety in his chest, because he could not even imagine what was hiding on the other side. After a long darkness, the ZK felt not only anxiety but also a premonition. Something unusual was waiting in front. The girl touched the magical crystal. The door was slowly opened, and bright white light suddenly flashed out of the darkness. Their eyes were widely revealed from surprise when they opened a whole city hidden under a giant tree. It was here that the main research center was. This place was impressed by its size. Huge buildings were rising inside the giant tree, and a waterfall. Zek wondered that it was leaking from the tree for the liquid, because it had a very strange appearance. The girl just nodded, and the young magician remembered that this resin is often used in the creation of artifacts. It was clear that this tree is special and was of great importance, but the girl did not want to talk openly. The guy apologized for talking a lot. He just was interested in learning more about the world. In the end, the girl said this tree is still living, and its resin is used to create magical substances and medicines. Waste remaining after research is not thrown away, but used as fertilizer. Researchers carefully inspect the tree every day to follow his condition. The center and the tree lived together in full harmony, supporting each other. Their cooperation was mutually beneficial, as if two. Going to the room, Zek was surprised by his beauty, but the girl immediately pointed to the blue door. It was there that she almost left, but Zek could not miss the opportunity to find out more. He wanted to. The girl agreed that he stayed a little more, and the guy decided that she loved magic too. Just as the ZK crossed the threshold, he noticed many people worked in white coats. Suddenly, a familiar voice came. This was Uncle Willie. The guy wanted to call Frau, but his uncle showed him his hand to wait. The spirit is now somewhere. She conveyed that she was looking forward to a new meeting, and Zek was not surprised after that warm hug. The uncle brought a large magical depth for inspection. It was a new artifact. Ordinary stones were allowed to be transferred to only one designated point, and this could connect several places at once. The main formula has already been drawn up, and now it was only necessary to check whether the teleportation would work. Willie called this project very promising. If everything can work, the carts will no longer be needed. Uncle wanted to acquaint his nephew with other departments and showed him the tree itself. The guy couldn't hide his admiration. Suddenly, bright light broke out in the room. Magical energy filled the air and everyone felt its powerful pressure. The stone was fired more and more every second, and Willie immediately ordered the device to be switched off. It was at this moment that the ZEK began to faint. The darkness sowed everything around. The young magician slowly opened his eyes and saw that he was lying in an almost destroyed room. He looked around confusedly, trying to understand where he got, and suddenly heard the familiar. Zek managed to be teleported, and fortunately he remained unharmed. Uncle began to ask him with relief if everything was fine. According to the first impressions, they were in the dungeon. It seems that it was a simple dungeon for beginners. Uncle Willie did not understand why they were transferred to this place. Maybe he was wrong in the calculations, or someone specifically in. Zek listened carefully, and in the meantime, Willie thought why they were forced to move. The coordinates of the dungeons did not appear on the stone. Something happened wrong, and now you have to look for a way out. When asked about the possibility of returning, Uncle explained that the dungeons established restrictions. It is forbidden to use teleportation. The dungeons can look different. Sometimes these are picturesque valleys, and sometimes covered with snow. No one still knows whether it is. In the bowels, ancient artifacts are hidden that can affect the life of the world, so researchers are constantly seeking to discover their secrets. Willie warned that the danger could appear anywhere, but in the end, there is some secret truth. Zack felt that somewhere near the hidden. But the uncle immediately warned, it is likely that this dungeon has long been searched, and nothing valuable here remained. Zeke could not understand why teleportation happened. This may have happened because of his special gift. To get out of here, you need to climb up. If they are waiting for a boss, they will overcome. Willie asked the Zek whether he wanted to overcome the boss on his own, because this is how you can get a unique experience that you will not gain on the surface. The guy thought for a moment, and his uncle said it was a great opportunity to check himself in a real duel. Zek agreed, although he had doubts whether he could deal with the boss on his own. Willie said that probably their enemy is a king of a red blade, a dangerous opponent of rank B. Zek had already won General Goblin at the same level. But then there were allies next, but this time he did not want to miss his chance to gain a new experience. His uncle also, he may have heard that he had won the general, so he had no doubt in him. This dungeon does not seem very dangerous. If something serious happens, you can always hide below. Suddenly, a frightened female voice is heard. It was unexpected. It seems that the battle with the boss will begin. Zek rushed to help the girl, but his uncle stopped him and asked him not to rush. They moved forward and suddenly saw a girl with tied hands and beastie ears. Even Willie was surprised by such a find. They reached the boss. Now you just need to defeat it and prove what they are capable of after all workouts. 2 gigantic coal spiders grew up in front of the Echo. These were earth monsters. They suddenly threw a sticky web at me. It was an unpleasant surprise to me. Uncle picked up Zek in time, protecting him from a dangerous blow. Willie explained that the most vulnerable places are eyes and paws. He recalled that during the battle it was necessary to integrate them. However, the real battle is completely different from training. The guy focused, gained courage, and stood in a fighting rack, ready. The bodies of these spiders are so solid as a stone, so they need to be in their weaknesses. Zek rushed forward, summoned the magic of the wind, and tore one of the spiders into pieces. Uncle praised him for a wonderful attack, but Zek already noticed an enemy who was quietly approaching Willie from behind. Willie, who has participated in the battles many times, did not get lost, and quickly responded to the attack. With one quick movement of the sword, he immediately won the monster, leaving no possibility for salvation, and entered another victory in his account. Willie apologized to the nephew for destroying his training target, but Zik just laughed, they say. For a warrior of this level, this is not a problem. After that, Willie suggested that he release people who were still in the cocoons and cut a huge web. The cocoons, connected by thin threads, suddenly began to fall down. Zik saw that a girl slipped out of one of them. The young magician managed to catch her when she fell. She was embarrassed and did not understand who he was. At once, others began to. A strong, bald man got out of the trap, carrying a girl named Emma. When he saw that he managed to save the first, his face was illuminated by. Emma quickly ran to her mistress, and Pell sighed lightly, glad that after the attack of the horrible monster, both remained alive. Emma and Action were very worried at first, but later the joy overwhelmed them. They were together again. Suddenly, Emma noticed that the ears of Action became visible. Her magical artifact, which hid the true appearance, broke during the battle. Zik watched the rescued carefully, who lively discussed the unusual appearance of the girl. He could not understand why their reaction was so negative. The guy saw that the Action was scared, and to reassure her, he reached out to her. The giant Pell was. Willie intervened in the conversation and explained that they were just walking with his nephew. Upon learning who was trapped in the coal spider, they decided to help. Pell noticed that Willie was dressed in the mantle of the magazine Just Images, and that surprised the young magician. The Action called Willie and Zika with her rescuers, and Pell expressed his gratitude. However, Willie stressed that a real hero is a Zik, and he only helped. Pell was amazed at the guy's courage and thanked him. He then turned to those who managed to save and suggested that he inspect other cocoons together. But Uncle Willie was gloomy. He believed that what he would see in other cocoons would hardly be pleasant. Everyone who was inside has already died. Willie explained that the body dungeon is decomposed very quickly, in just a few hours, and people here are no exception. In addition, spiders absorb vitality from their victims, so death in their tenets comes quickly and is accompanied by severe pain. Pell decided to pick up the armor of the fallen soldiers to bring them home. Willie supported this idea. It was at least something they could do for their comrade. The action sadly mentioned the knights who died to protect it. They have always remained loyal servants of the royal family. Zik regretted that he had not appeared earlier. He may then be able to help the guard. However, the action reassured him, asking not to blame himself. Those warriors knew what they were going on. Seeing her great suffering, the guy stretched her sweets that he brought from his world. These were Zika's favorite flavors that the best cook made for him. The guy believed that they could cheer the girl. The action, although very much wanted to eat, agreed to take food only from courtesy. But after the first piece, she lifted her eyes in surprise. The dish Zik was pleased to suggest, but the girl refused because she did not want to use his kindness excessively. Meanwhile, Pell brought the things of the dead, and Willie had already installed a charming tent so that the knights could gather and decide what to do next. Zik was amazed because he did not even imagine that his uncle had a magic tent. The action, meanwhile, did not find words to express her gratitude. She sincerely thanked the boy for his attention and delicious sweets. After that, she apologized that she had not yet told him how to. Finally, the girl was introduced. Her name is Diana von Estonia, and she is the third princess of the Kingdom of Estonia. The young magician could not even imagine that all this time there was a real princess in front of him. Meanwhile, Willie was looking at the outskirts and suddenly noticed traces of protective magic on the wreckage. It was because of this that no one noticed and heard a fight. Everything seemed very mysterious. So Willowed Willie decided to find out what really had happened here. It was at this moment that the stone and Daniela were reinforced after a long fainting condition. Despite the fact that they were unconscious for a long time, both felt quite normal. Di introduced everyone to her maid, who was called Emma Granger. Both girls sincerely thanked the knights. Barchmuda also introduced himself. He said he was a Graf, but immediately confessed that he was not at all like a real aristocrat. Diana confirmed that it is on the first time on Pella and trusts him without any doubt. The bald giant said that he had once heard of Willie, who was called Red Magig. He also knew that the Pela family was famous for educating prominent knights. When Pell noticed the red hair of Willie, he immediately suspected who he could be. The coat of arms, embroidered on his cloak. Diana was genuinely surprised when she found out that Willie belonged to the family. She often heard about this famous family. Willie apologized that he had not introduced himself, and said that he was the third vice-commander of the Magic Order of the Kingdom of Mangast. After everyone was introduced, it was a turn to tell how they found themselves in this dungeon. However, none of them could explain it exactly. The cause was a malfunction in the teleportation system. As soon as they were transferred, coal spiders were attacked by suddenly and immediately entangled everyone into the cocoons. Zik realized that everyone had experienced the same trials. Pell said that the disappearance of the princess would be a great trouble for the whole kingdom, so it must be returned intact. Therefore, Pell appealed to Willie to use magic and help because he knew that Willie was a powerful magician of the able. Zik suggested that they join their efforts because they both sought the same. Together, it would be easier for them to get out of the trap. For his uncle, this was. Willie was already ready to agree, but first decided to put forward one important condition for their cooperation. First of all, it was important that no one knows about the Zika's stay in this dungeon. To do this, everyone had to sign a magical contract on a special scroll. The stone was angry when he heard such a demand, and Zik looked at everyone in confusion, not understanding what was implied for a contract, and Camel said that the Scroll of Oath is the strictest among all magical treaties. If someone breaks such an oath, any punishment can be waiting for him, even death. This type of agreement has severe restrictions, which causes such a strong reaction. ZK was impressed with the seriousness of what was happening. Camel said such an agreement is too risky and can cost a princess of life. But Willie replied that if you did not agree to these conditions, it is not necessary to wait. The magician was convinced that the most important thing now is to hide what is here. Everything else lost weight for him. The princess watched closely at the conversation, and suddenly said that Mr. Zik for her was a real treasure that her heart appreciates. Zik could not believe heard. The words of the girl struck him to the depths of her soul. Then his uncle Willie said that his nephew is a special person in Abel's family, and he was destined to fulfill an important mission. Zik realized that his uncle implied not only his ability to magic, in these words something more, but seems too early to talk about it. In the end, Diana still signed the contract, although she was convinced that the conditions were favorable to only one party. Zik agreed, but wondered if the princess had his secrets that could be exchanged for the same agreement with him. But the girl decided it was superfluous. She understood that they could not be the only one who does not dare risk. Zeke asked that they and the princess became true friends and trust each other with their secrets. Diana silently removed the hood. She asked to keep the truth about her unusual ears. Her appearance was so surprised by Kamala and Daniel that they could not hide. Willie thought Diana has been looking like this since his childhood and was not mistaken. Diana said that this happens when different races are combined in the family. But for a person from a royal family, it was not a joy. It became a difficult burden for him. It was then that Zeke realized for the first time how much they suppressed. Diana said that he usually hides her true appearance with the help of a magic artifact. But after the attack of spiders, this artifact has broken, and its origin must be secret because the semicircles do not allow. Diana put forward her condition. The mystery will remain undisclosed until she decides to tell everything openly. Willie plunged into reflections, and Zeke promised that he would never betray a princess or her uncle was not surprised at all. He even rewritten the terms of the agreement. Now, instead of the death penalty, it was possible to lose memory or die. The princess was happy that everything succeeded, and sincerely thanked the young magician for his courage and a good heart. Everyone began to prepare for a magical treaty, and Willie immediately turned on a special magical screen. Just a few minutes passed, and they agreed. Willie emphasized that the main thing is not to disclose the secret. The stone remained dissatisfied, and Pell hoped that the wise magician would help them. Willie promised that he would help everyone get out of this dungeon because he liked the honesty of all present. And Pell was glad, knowing that the princess is now safe. Zeke promised Diana that he would help her, and was convinced that everyone would be able to survive. The princess. While Diana and Zeke were talking calmly, Willie thought of his affairs. Thanks to the concluded agreement, he was able to do what he did. The magician realized that there were many traitors around, so he decided to be careful and act. He was alerted by burnt residues of magical stone from which protective energy was still erupting. The barrier emerged after people were thrown into the dungeon. Willie began to suspect that someone specifically blocked access to external assistance, and this was only the beginning of all the troubles. Everything testified that a traitor who desires the death of a princess was hiding among the rescued. However, who exactly was? Willie was not worried about Zika. Even despite the danger, the guy was able to stand up for himself. The main thing now is to find out who their enemy is. When Zik woke up and opened his eyes, a good smile of his beloved uncle appeared before him. Zik asked who Willie talked to, but he just said he was supervising the nephew while he had to follow the tent. Hearing this, the guy immediately remembered his work and was upset. Zik noticed that his new friends were very tired, so he decided to allow them to relax in a magical tent. He was located at the entrance to stand on guard, but eventually Willie was gently explained that Zika is still early to alternate while everyone was resting. But Zik really wanted to help and be useful. Uncle laughed because he realized that the boy imagined himself a hero of great adventures. However, Zeke said that everything he wants was to become strong. Somewhere in the heart of Zeke, he imagined how in the future they would be with the feasibility study of adventures, go to battles with monsters, and gain both glory and good money. Willie saw that his nephew was confused, and said with a smile that he was still a child who dreams of growing faster. The nephew asked not to joke about it. Willie said that the knights had already returned and brought the ingredients, so it is time to look what they were. Zik was surprised because he did not even notice how they went out. In a few minutes, so many different foods appeared on the table that everyone had froze with surprise. Even the hot soup stood, and it smelled pleasant. It seemed as if there was... Zik noted how Diana looked interested in food. It was seen that she liked the fresh sandwich the most. Emma shared how she found dishes in a charming tent and prepared delicious dishes there. The bald knight gratefully addressed Villa and Zika. It was thanks to them that everyone was able to relax and stay safely while they slept. At this time, Zik reached out by Princess Diana half of his sandwich. It was clear that she really liked the dish. The girl was surprised and could not understand how he guessed her desire. The magician smiled and said that he realized everything because her tail was moving. Hearing this, Diana immediately became very embarrassed. She wondered if it did not cause disgust, but Zik just smiled and said that it was not surprising, but even the stone was angry and strictly forbade the guy to say something bad about the princess. Zik tried to explain that his words were misinterpreted. The knight did not retreat and threatened the guy with severe punishment, despite the fact that he is still young. But unexpectedly, cut into the table. Willie reminded the knight in a calm voice that the best thing to do is just breakfast, and not pay attention to children's conversations. The stone was immediately confused and apologized. Diana reassured her faithful guard, saying that all is well. Zik just expressed some pleasant compliments. Daniela, having calmed down a little, asked about further plans. It was important for her to understand what to do. She advised the shortest way, to defeat the main monster of the dungeon. Willie immediately agreed, because thanks to magic he already knew that the boss was waiting at the last level. This is probably the king of the Red Blade. Many monsters will happen to him, but they are all weak. If we stay together, we will easily cope. Camila continued to bother something. He could not understand how the magician was able to determine from afar how many enemies around. Then Willie said, he cannot see the enemies themselves. Unlike Camilla, Daniela has sincerely appreciated it, because experienced magicians are really capable of predicting danger, and such support is invaluable. Zeke always admired his uncle and dreamed of becoming as skillful as he. However, in addition to magic, the guy sought to master many different skills. Pell proposed to leave immediately after breakfast if the princess did not deny. He sincerely thanked Willie and Zeke for their important support. The stone became dissatisfied with his nose. He was annoyed that the princess paid attention to some magical stranger. He with annoyance threw the phrase that those geniuses were only visible. After breakfast, Daniel carefully shared with her partner by noticing in the morning. Willie talked to someone and reported, holding a piece of magic stone in her hand. Maybe everyone came here because of this stone. In the morning, Willie said something about it. The stone was angry. For him, the wizard was the culprit, and he decided that it was time to warn everyone. But Daniela asked everyone not to panic. She said that now it is not time to resist the magician. The stone with reluctance agreed, regretting that he could not help now. But Daniela assured that she would find another way out, and in memory of the brother Camela, Camel remembered that he spent all his life in the shadow of his older brother, a real hero whom everyone was. He hoped that when he became a knight, he would deserve respect. However, no matter how tried, people always compared him with his brother. Daniela confessed that she was advised to take it as a security guard for the princess. She saw in him courage and strength. The stone did not hide his surprise and thanked for his trust. Daniela assured that together they can overcome any danger. The most important thing is that they are only united. They are able to repel a red magician. The words Daniel added Kamilov's confidence, and he already on the 24th floor of the dungeon. Zik easily won small monsters and got food for the detachment. The bald knight was surprised to see the guy straightened himself with whole flocks of monsters. However, Willie noted that these are only the first steps. The Zik has to. Now Pell realized why Willie insisted on a magical contract. Zik really was something precious, exceptionally special, and the young magician returned from hunting, carries the meat and various other ingredients. He happily announces everyone, "Today, we are waiting for a delicious lunch." However, Camel looked at all of it with suspicion. He could not understand why, after the death of the monsters, their bodies disappeared, and instead there was only fresh meat. Willie said that the bodies of monsters do not remain after death because they turn into energy. It is this energy that feeds the dungeon. The main part disappears immediately, but the most valuable remains remain on the ground. They can be selected or used for food. The stone noticed that sometimes it happens to find already cooked dishes. It is much more convenient, and even useful. Willie could not explain exactly why this happened. Perhaps this dungeon built ancient civilizations as a special farm. But for Camel, it all looked like scary magic. At this time, ZK noticed Diana worried, and immediately tried to rejoice her, assuring, together they would overcome any difficulty. Diana calmly said that she was not afraid, but noticed her fluffy tail and lowered her eyes. Zik asked guilty because he did not know what to reassure her. The princess wondered if Zika was frightened with the monsters of one. Zik honestly replied that he was scared, but he understands. He just wants to protect those whom he loves, and is ready to challenge any enemy for them. Diana was impressed with his words, but Zeke just smiled and said that it was just children's dreams. In the future, he wants to travel the world and gain. The guy was a little embarrassed when he confessed that he sometimes was scared through the monsters. But the desire to change and become better than this fear. He wants to grow. He cannot stay in one place for a long time and always dreams of new trips. She remembered how she spent all her life behind the high walls of the palace. She was not lacking, except for true freedom. Diana enviously watched as other children play and run freely without thinking about titles or responsibilities. Zik felt her emotions and suggested spending a day in a cozy and beautiful place nearby. Here, the trees with unusual fragrant fruits grew, and then there was a fountain. Zik suggested a stroll and see this place with her. Diana happily agreed to the walk, and Zeke reached out to her and assured that she had nothing to fear because they were near each other. If there is a danger, it will definitely protect it. The princess gladly agreed to accept his invitation. However, it was then that a stone appeared and strictly forbade Zika to approach the princess. Willie joked that it is not necessary to interfere. There is no danger ahead, and there are always Pell and Emma. That the bald knight said he had never seen the princess so joyful. Willie only answered a smile. He knew well that there was a lot of good in his nephew in the heart of his nephew. Zik and Diana walked together, forgetting for a moment about all her worries. They were eaten like pears with fruits, and looked at the surrounding area with curiosity. The night Pell always kept nearby, and when some monsters tried to spoil them peace, he immediately appeared and quickly dealt with them. After a long walk, Zik and Diana returned to others to have lunch together. After lunch, they went again for a walk. Camilla did not like it at all. He watched the Zik carefully and followed. During the walk, they suddenly came across the path that led them to the ancient, mysterious doors. It was a gate that led to the final level of the dungeon. Willie said that the main boss was waiting for this door. If you overcome it, then you can get to the surface. The stone suggested not to waste time and start the fight immediately, but Willie stopped him, saying that the boss was rank B, and it would be unreasonable to attack him without. The magician offered everyone to relax this night, and to go to the decisive battle at dawn. He emphasized that the Zik should sleep qualitatively, because perhaps, tomorrow, Willie noted that most likely this night would be the last in the dungeon. However, he emphasized, he should not expect that. That evening, Diana wanted to talk to the Zik before bedtime, because she was restless, and she did not want to part with new friends like that, without words. Zik was surprised when he saw that the princess had come to him. It turned out that Emma and Pell decided to give her a little time to. Willie did not mind talking, but still did not want the children to go to the dungeons on their own. Then Diana decided to convince him. She said that it is possible that at night they could talk to peace this night, because soon their roads can disperse forever. Willie agreed, but for their safety imposed a spell and created an icy cage so that in the event of danger to immediately. Zik was enthusiastically suggested going to one beautiful place that he accidentally found when he was looking for food. The princess happily agreed, so they went to the. Willie was certain, even if the Zika was being attacked now, nothing wrong would happen. At this time, Pell and Emma were dinner, and he decided to carefully monitor what would happen to. The magician sought to find a traitor as soon as possible, and it was now a wonderful moment to make him give himself. At this point, the stone noted that Daniela was holding something in her hands, and asked what magical objects were. She said that this artifact can show where Princess Diana is and how she feels. The stone was surprised and did not immediately understand why it was needed. Daniela said that she thought a trap for a red magician. She asked Camilla to take a magic stone and help you realize her plan. She said firmly, "All this is done to protect the princess." The stone was determined and ready to go everything to save her. Daniela emphasized that there will be only one opportunity, and there is no mistake. Only by defeating the Mitiga, they will have a chance to return home whole and intact. Meanwhile, Diana and Zik came out to the spacious lawn, where the starry sky spread over them. The girl did not expect to see such a spectacular beauty here. To surprise the girlfriend, Zik took advantage of magic and created some comfortable soft chairs in the shade. He explained that these chairs are very comfortable for relaxation. Diana smiled, and immediately it was very comfortable and nice to sit on soft pillows. Zik asked what she wanted to talk to him. The princess said the guy is a real wonder. Although both of them were as many years, Zik had a lot of knowledge and always treated her with kindness, and she wanted to give gratitude on behalf of the princess. In addition, she promised that if he once needed help, Zik told himself that he was still young and knows little, but he really wants to learn and become stronger. Meanwhile, Willie thought about his nephew and realized Zik did not even imagine how special he is. Zik asked the princess whether she was able to understand the precious stone. But Diana honestly confessed that he knew almost anything about it. She said that Zika's family was of great importance for the creation of the kingdom. They were given the title of Marquis, and because of the connection with the second son of the founder of the throne, they became the second royal family. Zik has already heard similar words from his uncle, and Diana added that Abel's family has kept special value in a row. She said it was a family treasure, but Zik could not understand anything, because Willie never mentioned it. Diana told an interesting rumor. A real treasure is gifted children. However, it is only part of the truth that only royal families and high-ranking people know. Family Abel does not apologize to those who are trying to steal their treasure. Zik and no idea had how important this treasure is for them. Diana did not know the details, but she was convinced that when the moment came, Zik would hear the truth from her loved ones. The guy nodded thoughtfully, agreeing with her. She said that they both seek to understand the truth about their future. She still advised to look at her more closely, but Zik just laughed. It was too mysterious for him. Diana nodded, smiled, and said that she seems to have been acquainted with a young magician for a long time. She suggested that you turn to her simply by name. Zik was confused by Diana's request, and said her name timidly without understanding why it is so important to her. Diana did not. Finally, the princess decided to admit that she sincerely seeks Zika to be a real girlfriend, because they may not be destined to meet again. She thanked him for the wonderful. The princess promised herself to never forget these moments, because it was then that she was for the first time to forget about the severity of her title, and cease to be ashamed of her own. When she returns home, she will again become a simple princess, and will no longer have such freedom as it is now. That is why she wanted to talk to Zak on an equal footing. Zik listened to her surprise, because earlier he believed that all princesses treat ordinary people with. Now he confessed to himself. He also liked to perceive Diana simply as a peer and a girlfriend. He was even interested in watching her tale always shows her mood. Zik suggested staying in touch, even when they rise from the dungeon. He said that you could write letters to each other and meet again. The princess was happy about this proposal and agreed immediately, because she really wanted to meet again with Zak. The guy looked carefully at the girl and thought that she would grow up a real beauty. But now they are both only children. Meanwhile, Willie carefully watched where Zik and Diana were going, who had already gone away to safe. And Pell and Emma stayed quietly in their tent, without even the most worried behavior of knights. They could not be found anywhere, which meant only one thing. They used special magic to go unnoticed. Willie decided not to delay. If the stone and Daniela really hide something, it may mean that Zika is in danger. Suddenly he noticed that someone was holding his nephew on his hands. The magician stopped immediately, because he understood that he should save Zika. No one understood how the enemies managed to break the ice cage. But even more frightening was that the princess had disappeared, as if it had dissolved in the air. Willie became angry so much that he decided to punish every knight who offended his nephew. He didn't care who to start with. The stone felt pleased. The place where the mage just was turned into ruins. He was convinced that Willie did not survive after such a powerful explosion. However, his victory proved to be short-lived. Daniel suddenly stuck his sword in his back, collecting all his hopes with. She called Camilla a fool, because he did not even know her betrayal. In her view, his death was deserved. Daniela even thanked him for his ill-advised act, because other knights would not get into such a trap. The stone, lying and flowing with blood, felt only bitter. The girl said he was the wisest knight of all. That is why she suggested being instructed to defend the princess, because such a fool would not be able to save her even from the slightest. Even such a not very smart guy, having received a special magical artifact, managed to harm a strong sword. Daniela did not hide the joy of victory. She only had to get rid of the children this night, and no one would interfere with her plans. The stone, gathering all his strength, tried to stop it. The girl struck another powerful blow, and then confessed that the stone had a real shake and could become an outstanding knight. Unfortunately, it turned out to be too weak, and now his breathless body remained in the dark. He always remained in the shadow of his older brother, so when he disappears, no one would even be upset. Everyone would just forget about him as if he was superfluous. These were the last words that the stone heard. And in the last seconds of his life, he became painful that he did not see the betrayal before. Zik and Diana heard a spooky explosion. It became clear that the disaster happened. Without hesitation, they rushed back toward the magic tent. At that moment, a big door opened to the room with the boss of the dungeon. Emma and Earl Pell appeared behind them. They were also frightened by the explosion. Diana wondered what had happened. The bald knight confessed that he did not know himself. He told how they were in the tent when they suddenly heard the explosion and immediately began to gather. But when they tried to get out, it turned out that the tent was surrounded by a magical barrier. None of them could understand who and how he put this trap. Finally, Pell gathered all his strength and broke through the barrier. When they were outside, there was a strange silence around. There was neither the roar of Zik was looking for an uncle with anxiety, but suddenly Daniel appeared and said she was with Camel where Willie had to be now. The girl, filled with blood, guessed that the same one who moved them into this dungeon was attacked. Daniela showed a big door and said that a criminal had escaped there. Willie and Camel immediately rushed after him. She suggested that the pursuit immediately join, and Earl Pell agreed. The cunning knight suggested that the princess not move, because perhaps the enemies are hiding behind the door. However, Diana did not agree to stay in place, so Zyke promised. A spacious hall opened behind the massive door, and in its center sat the most dangerous inhabitant of the whole dungeon, the boss of rank B. Diana immediately realized who was in front of her. He was the king of the Red Blade, an extremely powerful monster. Zik looked around, looking for Willie, but he was not visible anywhere. He asked where his uncle and Stone went, but Daniel only laughed ominously. Suddenly the door thundered and closed. Daniela called all the fools in her hearts, then opened a magical portal. She stopped masking, a real traitor who lured the princess into a deadly trap. Only now did Pell understand who she was. Daniela felt completely protected. She assured that Willie and Stone had already died. However, Zik could not believe that his uncle was real. Daniela said she didn't care her. She added that if the Red Mag was alive, it would have been shown for a long time. At that moment, the boss began to move unexpectedly. Daniela wanted to add even more tension to fight. She used magic to make the king stronger. She sincerely sought to see the death of the princess. Diana became angry, and Zik turned on his ability called Evaluating Eye. He noticed that Daniela had cursed, and now the boss's strength has become unstable, and how strong he is, no one knows. The only weakness of this monster was his sensitivity to lightning. Meanwhile, Daniela was already preparing to call other creatures. Dark magic quickly spilled around. The traitor ordered everyone to look silently as the princess dies, because, according to her, everyone has to die. Earl Pell called to Zik to grasp Diana and flee quickly, otherwise they will not have. Zik nodded as a sign of consent, and carefully took Diana, which was still frightened. Thanks to his evaluating eye, when they almost got to the door, Daniel attacked. Zik instantly lifted the light barrier to protect the princess, and in response struck the enemy with a powerful wind gun. The young magician realized that without the victory over the King of the Red Blade, he could not escape. His enemy was too powerful. The only way to win is to destroy the magic stone that Daniela has inserted into the body of the boss. However, the stone was surrounded by. When lightning cannot be applied, you have to look for another powerful spell to break the protection. However, the chance of success was only 20%. Zik was aware that his body would withstand one attempt to apply a strong spell. If he is beating, it will all fail. It is impossible to constantly defend themselves, because over time the shields will fall, and with them all hopes will disappear. Suddenly, Diana voiced an unexpected idea. She suggested becoming a live bait for the monster. Zik immediately refused such a proposal. The princess explained that she could not fight, but under the protection of the barrier she will be able to confuse the enemy from the Panthelic. At the same time, Zik and Pell will destroy the monster. She understood that even if she perishes herself, others would be able to survive. For her, Zik was persistently denied, but Diana confidently said that she was ready to risk her life and would not allow her words to remain empty. She already perceived Zika as her friend and did not want something to happen to him. The magician could not refuse her, but he decided to go his way. He suggested escaping together, and then suddenly rushed past the boss and gave him his hand lightly. Then Zik hid the princess in a reliable cocoon and promised that he would do his best to protect it and prevent any loss. The young magician thought that he was not accidental in this dungeon. It may have been his fate, but the problem was that the enemy could only be overcome by lightning, and Zik did not possess. There was almost no hope, but he gathered all his strength and decided to change everything. He had to win to continue his journey. Zik most sought to protect the dear people, and right now is that crucial moment. Without hesitation, he dug forward, clamping a fight. If he can win, hope will be alive. However, no one promised that the magic stone would be able to destroy immediately. But suddenly it became noticeable. The boss has already been cut off. His strength only grew. Suddenly, a bright lightning was illuminated around, and a powerful explosion. Diana could not believe that she had lost her only friend and defender. In the meantime, Daniela was imperceptible to her. Willie was still breathing in light barrier. It was very difficult for him, but he knew. He had to get up. Suddenly, a voice heard a voice that addressed him. The stranger called him the first to find it. The voice was surprisingly. A white butterfly flew nearby, and Zeke remembered that he had ever seen him. Then the voice explained that only through this butterfly could he hear a true message. The guy could not understand who was talking to him. However, he felt that it was not a simple creature. Suddenly, a black sword emerged in front of him. Zik immediately remembered how his uncle talked about ancient artifacts hidden in each dungeon. It was this sword that spoke to him. He suggested taking the opportunity, gathering all his strength, because there was very little time. Zik understood. I couldn't find the best moment. He decided to take the risk and try to get an artifact, even if it was his. The sword was surprised by the boy's bravery. He said that the young man has not yet become a real gem, but agreed to obey the one who was not afraid to fight. At this point, Daniel tried to break through Diana's defense, simultaneously striking the graph of Pela to destroy his defense. After a series of strong blows, the princess's defense did not stand. The traitor came closer and strictly ordered Diana to meet her death. Looking directly in her eyes, she looked at all people with contempt, considering them worthless. The only thing she wanted was to fulfill her task as soon as possible and deprive the world of another feudal. Unexpectedly by Daniel, a strong magical light broke out. She returned and frozen from what she saw. ZK received a rare artifact, a sword that could defeat any opponent in this dungeon. The princess did not hide her admiration with joy, and Daniela wondered how a heavy sword suddenly became a thin, graceful rapier. She screamed, demanding from Zika to surrender or accept death. However, the guy felt power and was not going to concede. With the help of black rapiers, he caused a strong magical hurricane. Although he spent all his magical forces, he did not feel exhausted. Zeke was confident in himself and had no hesitation about his victory. He had to take the last step. He rushed at such a speed that a flame broke out around, which instantly absorbed a giant enemy. The main boss could not stand a powerful blow. His body was scattered into many small pieces. At this point, ZK realized, now it all depends on him and him. When he returned to the princess, he was covered by heavy fatigue. Diana rejoiced. It seemed that God himself left Zika alive for some important. Daniela was crazy from anger. She lost, the artifact was unnecessary, and her plan fell again. Taking a black dagger, the traitor decided that she would destroy everyone, even if it costs her life. It was at this moment that she was pierced with a sharp pain in her hand. She released a dagger. The traitor has not yet had time to understand how a large hole appeared in the door. A loud explosion came, and a brow heard a voice that knew well. The mighty magician, all in the wounds, carried the body of a trusting knight of Camila on her hands. In his heart, the thirst for revenge Daniele flashed. A woman who was convinced that he died immediately stopped at horror. Willie, went on stage. He moved so quickly that he did not even notice the Pell when he was very close. However, the knight continued to keep a careful distance between them. Pell noticed that Willie was holding the wounded Camilla on her hands. The magician explained that he saved the knight, though he was a traitor, because his death would. Pell and Emma were amazed. The stone also betrayed them. Meanwhile, Daniela was going to a decisive battle, believing that he could defeat the wounded magician. She released arrows of dark magic, but Willie defended her, lifting a bright shield from light. After that, he called on a huge magical vortex that Daniel was so frightened that she felt helpless for the first time. When she tried to escape, Willie immediately stopped her, locking her in the icy cage. She had to answer her action. The magician said that he could not be killed by any weapon from her kingdom. This was greatly surprised by Daniel. Willie immediately recognized the master's sign on the wreckage. But even more, he was struck by the fact that the traitor was also from the same country. Daniela did not trust the magician and did not take his words seriously. But Willie has fallen her lies. He quickly stuck her needle in. The magician decided not to spend time talking. He intended to get the necessary information directly from her mind, but only the needles got the heads of Daniel. There was a strong explosion. Willie first could not understand where she went. However, over time, he guessed that the girl used a teleport stone that appeared after the boss won. Before disappearing, Daniela laid a curse on a red magician and said she would make him ask her for mercy. Willie realized that if he had not hesitated, he could stop her. But now it was too late. The stone was already harmful. Zik, exhausted, glad that his uncle survived. Daniel disappeared, but now everything seemed to be better. Called, the guy fell asleep with a strong sleep. Willie reassured the princess, explaining that everything was well with Zach. He was just very tired because he spent all his magical power. Diana rejoiced that everything was over. She sincerely thanked Willie for his help, but the magician looked disappointed. It seemed to him that he came too late. He sincerely believed that if he had lingered at least for a few minutes, the princess and others would not survive. But Willie decided not to blame himself. He advised Diana to turn to Pela and Emma, as they were also injured. When everyone helps them and heal the wounds, they will be able to get up. Meanwhile, Zika's consciousness has moved to a strange space. In silence, he heard a gentle and familiar voice who gently turned to him. In the next moment, the guy was in his mother's arms. He could not explain how it happened, but clearly felt the warmth of the most tender hands in the world. Lyra was gently looking at her son. For the last time, she saw him a baby, and now she was in front of her. She apologized to the fact that their meeting was so unexpected, because it was her only opportunity to talk to him after a... Zik could not hold back tears. He apologized for not noticing Lyra became ill and did not help her. But Lyra gently smiled and reassured him. She explained that it was not just a disease, but a real curse that was unnoticed. But now it was no longer so important. The main thing is that he could know something really special. She pulled out a magic stone and said it was a real treasure. Once upon a time, this power protected her until Zik was born. And now, Lyra did not want to shift this burden on her son's shoulders, but she knew that it was impossible to change it and escape from it. The young magician addressed his mother and asked what the true value of the treasure of the Abel family was. Lyra answered him that it was necessary to mention the gods first. One of the gods of the divine kingdom has long created this world. He so much attached to his creation that he often went down to people and spent happy days with them. Over time, the battle broke out in the world of the gods. Even the good creator of people was in the fight of this struggle. He had to defend himself from enemies who sought to take away his power to create life. To protect people, God divided his soul into many parts, hiding his power in each wreck. After that, he dispelled these parts around the world, hiding them even from other. God hid the most expensive fragments deep underground, and the most important part of his power entrusted to those whom he considered his closest allies. That is why the main force moved to a man from the Abel. Due to this, their family became a guardian of powerful and dangerous energy. What happened to God further, no one knows. However, Zik had to understand why their family was keeping the largest treasure. Now that the secret has opened, everyone who protects this power has turned into a target. Some want to destroy it, and others, to take possession of it. Lyra could not find a place, because she realized that a heavy burden would soon lie on her little son's shoulders. She gently hugged him, and suddenly felt all the weight from him. Because even after his death, his mother continues to protect him. He reassured her, promising that he would not seem, whatever circumstances. After all, there are always friends next to him. Zik has already found many people they want to defend, and believes that even more important acquaintances are waiting for him. The guy confessed that there are many people in this world that he wants to protect. It was for this reason that he decided to accept the treasure of the genus. He will grow up by the true guardian of the Creator, and will protect this world from darkness, which seeks to conquer it. Zik promised himself that after all the events he could finally live as he dreams, near him. And yet he will always keep the memories of his mother who, Lyra, mocking her beloved son, hugged him again. She asked that he did not give up his own happiness for the sake of great things, because life should bring joy. She dreams of her little son grew happy, lived for a long time, and has always been surrounded by love. At that moment, Lyra was heard by the voice of the leader, connecting the world of the living and the dead. It was a sign that the time of their meeting passed. She said farewell words to her most expensive treasure, though she could not leave him nearby. However, she promised. Zik very much wanted to stay with her, but he could not change the laws of the universe. Lyra went slowly, and for goodbye asked, "If you once see a white..." In an instant, her body crumbled for hundreds of white, like snow, butterflies. In a quiet, weak voice, she promised that she... The boy had tears flowed on his cheeks. He wanted to take his mother by the hand, but she was no longer around, only the white shimmer of the wings left. It all ended as unexpectedly as it began. Zik opened his eyes, the sun was shining above him, and Kaki rushed into his arms. Along with him stood the excited sister of Theo and the strict father of Gilbert. They were both anxious when he came. Zik smiled because it was the best dream in his life. He asked how he was upwards, and his father replied that Willie suggested where he should go. Gilbert said that Princess Diana was all right and nothing threatens. However, the kingdom has tension. Knights are now on duty near the castle and day and night. The uprising suddenly broke out in Estonia and Diana was unfairly accused of betrayal. Now she is threatened with the death penalty. Meanwhile, the Theo went to the hotel, apologized for an unexpected visit, and said that there was an emergency. She asked her to hand over the whole. The girl assured that all guests will help all the guests and compensate for all the expenses. But the owner of the hotel, Ingrid, still. Theo said it was the secret information of the state. She cannot tell the details and asked anyone to share what was happening here. In a large room, Willie raised a protective spell and told her brother that now nothing was threatened. No stranger would be able to listen. Gilbert praised him for. Diana solemnly announced that he was the Princess of Estonia, and Gilbert was introduced by the commander of the First Order of the Knights from the Kingdom of Travet. Everyone has already learned what trials the princess survived in the dungeon and rejoiced that she remained intact. Diana sincerely thanked everyone for his care and said that Villy had saved her life. Earl Powell was worried about the uprising that swept their country. He was most concerned that people chose Diana with their. Gilbert said that the uprising is small and stopped quickly, but so far, Diana wants to be imprisoned, and the castle was captured by the rebels. The princess wondered if there were injured people. Fortunately, there were almost no dead, but wounded units. The most unexpected was that Tobias himself, who was the first knight of the kingdom, accused Diana of organizing a rebellion. Now, Diana was shocked by the betrayal of her brother. Earl Powell also could not understand how such accusations were made against them, because they were constantly in the. Everyone was consensus. The accusations did not make any sense. The princess could not raise the uprising, because then she fought for her life. Zik continued. She sacrificed herself to become a bait for a formidable boss in the dungeon. All her actions were for the sake of the subjects. She always put others in the first place. Gilbert also did not believe that she was guilty, and understood that the enemies threw her into the dungeon just. Only now did Zik realize that Willie was constantly talking to Gilbert. In addition, the charges of Tobias seemed suspicious. It seemed that the prince was just looking for a way to get rid of his sister, so he invented a fable about the uprising and her death in the dungeon. Everyone knew that Tobias was strict. However, no one could understand why he was so cruel to his sister, because she did not seek to. Gilbert asked not to speak like this next to the princess. Willie immediately apologized for his straightforwardness. He just looked. Diana honestly said that she did not want war between people and could not believe that her brother could really do it. She also stressed that she was not guilty of anything. Gilbert suggested that she calm down and promised to find out what really happened, because the child who was betrayed did not deserve. Even if there is no evidence against Tobias, Diana remains a princess from another country. Willie emphasized that hiding her is dangerous. But Gilbert strongly said that he would not be able to sleep peacefully if he sent an innocent girl to the gallows, especially if it is a girlfriend of Zika. Willie nodded, agreeing with his brother, and decided not to argue. He was already convinced that Diana was not at all as Tobias told. Then Willie confessed that he was conducting his own investigation. Most likely, his search has to do with the Kingdom of Estonia. He also said that he would need the help of Count and Diana. Gilbert also did not want to put the girl in danger and upset Zeke, and the young magician sincerely thanked his relatives for their support. Earl Powell sincerely thanked, and Willie asked the princess to give him an artifact she used to change her appearance. The magician said that a talented master who creates charming tools lives in the city. To use masking again, you need to repair the artifact. While Willie was walking to the master, Gilbert was to prepare a report. But he still couldn't think of how to justify his decision to hide the princess. Willie suggested his plan, and explained that everything could come out if Diane joins them. He emphasized that she is an unusual girl. The magician suggested that she come to the estate of Abel's family as soon as the amulet was restored. There she will be able to find shelter, and Diana felt protected when she was near Zik. In the meantime, Willie was finally preparing to put a point in the case that reached. Before going out, he looked at a trick and said he needed to talk to another important person. The stone at this time lay unconscious. In his dreams, he returned to his memory of his defeat. He himself acknowledged that Daniel was right. The stone regretted only one thing. He failed to save the princess. After that bitter defeat, he did not want to die. The knight was scared and looked at Diana, who was standing nearby. The girl warned him so that he did not try to rise, and Palu quietly asked her to move away a little further. Despite all the difficulties, the princess did not hide joy when she was convinced that he was alive and unharmed. The stone was confused. He did not know how to. Willie said that he did not specifically treat the wounds of the knight, so that he would not make ill-advised actions. Now the moment has come to talk about what happened. The magician warned, there are many guards around, so Camilla is only to try to escape. He will immediately grasp and punish. Zik immediately realized that his uncle was serious and harsh this time. He behaved not as a relative, but as a real deputy commander of the 3rd Magic. The stone was confused, and did not know how to act properly, but even had no thoughts, because he felt that the young knight sincerely apologized for his careless act. He acknowledged his difficult mistake, and boldly stated that he was ready to accept. In fact, he understood almost nothing. Willie called him a fool, who decided to cooperate only when he was already late. The magician was primarily interested when the stone became an ally of Daniel. Camel explained that this happened in the dungeon when Daniela suspected Willie of the church. Willie could not believe that the stone just trusted her and did not even try to check her accusation. Earl Powell said that the support of the princess consists only of the best aristocrats, so even suspecting them in betrayal is like blaming the whole royal family in betrayal. Hearing these words, the magician thought, Daniel may also come from the aristocrat's family and has its reason. Pal accused the girl of betrayal and that she supports Prince Tobias. Willie began to gradually understand what was really going on. The stone simply followed. Then the magician wondered if he heard something about the uprising he was said to be governed by the princess. The stone was confused. It seemed to him that it was some kind of misunderstanding. He could not imagine that young Diana really. Willie did not believe his words. The stone, completely forgetting his wounds, began to actively wave his hands, indignant that they were accused of Diana. He said they spent a lot of time together, and he was sure she would never have done anything wrong. Even Willie assured that there is no reason to worry. No one thinks that Diana is a traitor. But despite this, the magician could not fully trust the. Calmly suggested using the magic of truth to prove his sincerity. Willie agreed that it was a rather reasonable thought. The magician said that he has the ability to look into the thoughts of Camel and learn the whole truth, but this is possible only. The knight was confused with fear, but Willie hurried to reassure him. No one would slam his head. There is a special artifact that allows you to see memories. But on the liars, it has not yet been tried, because something unexpected may come out. Zik was already going to intervene, but Willie stopped him with one hand. It was their only chance to know the truth. If the stone has indeed been in defense of the prince. The magician looked closely at the knight, trying to determine whether he was ready to put his own life for the sake of truth. The princess did not want the stone to feel pain, but he courageously said that he intended to prove that Diana was not guilty of anything. The stone decided to take responsibility for his actions and prove that he was able to protect others. He was tired all the time to make a mistake and feel a failure. Willie praised him for his firmness and said that the moment had come to start eradicating memories from the memory of the young knight. The magician said that now nothing to change. The stone for teleportation is broken and the around, a full mess. The stone still did not understand why it was so important. Willie explained that the artifact is safe and threatened. He has not caused harm to anyone. But the stone was a little offended, because he thought that Willie scared him. But Willie remembered how Camel tried to blow him in the dungeon, so he thought he had no right to complain now. Saying goodbye to Zack and Diana, the magician turned to the knight and suggested sending him to another place to use a magic artifact. The princess engulfed fear, but Zick hurried to reassure her. Uncle Willie, though he says sharply, in fact a good man. Diana listened to the words of a friend, trying to suppress anxious premonitions. There was anxiety inside, but she decided. Zick noted that she was difficult for her, and advised not to hide her feelings. He said that there are always those who are ready to help. Although there was a terrible misery, she did not remain alone. Next to her pal, Emma, and the whole family of Abel. Zick promised that he would always stay nearby, which is why he believes that everything would be adjusted. Hearing these words, the princess thought, they may really be able to learn the truth and overcome all the difficulties. Zick was aware that luck in the dungeon was only temporary and true difficulties. But despite everything, he firmly decided he will no longer allow anyone to die. To do this, a few days passed, and at the castle of Mednus, Julius did not restrain joy. He laughed loudly, unfolding the letter he received from Manga. Willie's arguments liked him, and Julius decided that the Abella family deserved his attention, especially if it was a treasure. Julius instructed the servant to arrange a meeting with Abel's family. It was necessary to talk personally about the amazing requirements written in the letter. He was interested in a request to Willa and his brother, so he was looking forward to this meeting. At this time, Zika was met with gentle hugs by Marie and Alberto. They were genuinely rejoiced in his return and knew about the dangerous adventure he experienced. Alberto intended to arrange a big party on the occasion of his brother's return and already chose a special gift. The older brother, as always, decided to have fun and joked. He wore a girlfriend on his head. Marie happily said that Zick now looks like a real angel, which was very satisfied. But the boy did not like it at all. Theo asked that Zeke had a little rest and then told Diana as a guest in their home. Alberto apologized and said that before he went to the capital, his father asked to follow the princess and take care of her. Diana said that it was not necessary to apologize. She is very joyful to see a warm relationship between her brother and the princess has already prepared space and a safe room. It will remain there until everything is clear. Diana, Pal, and Emma thanked every resident of the house for their sincerity and care. Zeke promised that he would visit the princess every time he would be able to bring her favorite books and sweets so that she would not be sad. The princess promised to wait, and Marie asked what she binds to her brother with Diana. Waking up in his bed, in a cozy favorite room, Zeke felt a real home. He gently hugged Kaki because he missed him very much. In this place, he found comfort and felt safe. Tiger also liked a new home, and has already been used to living here. Zick remembered how he once wanted to find only a handful of magic in the Forest of Spirits. But in the end, he got a lot more than he could imagine. Although the sword from the dungeons no longer spoke to him, it was because of this artifact that the guy was able to master high magic without harming his body. He thought that he may have been the reason that he managed to overcome all the trials in the dark dungeon. After all, this sword chooses his master. The magical assistant tried to explore the sword, but he was stopped by an unknown strong force. The artifact was protected by a magical seal, and the assistant was disappointed because of his failure and thought that he was no longer a special appraiser. However, Zick encouraged him, advised not to lower his hands, and wished success. The young man remembered that the sword once mentioned the treasure of the Abel family. He thought that it was to protect such treasures that they create dungeons, because they hide the fragments of the soul of great creators there. There are still many riddles, but Zick promised his mother that he would keep the family treasure. He did not understand how to do it, because there was a solid secret around it. He decided to talk to his father or try to find out something in Abel's family. In addition, it was necessary to train constantly, because the danger has already become an integral. Zick wanted to talk to Uncle Willie, but could not tell him about his special element, so he had to look for answers on his own. Around the dangers were chatted, and with every step, fear covered his heart more and more. However, he did not show his alarm. He did not want to be. There is no other way out. Now the moment has come to the relatives, as his mother once advised. Meanwhile, Willie and Gilbert reached the royal capital, where they were waiting for a personal reception with Prince Julius, who had to listen to their words and make an important decision. A serious conversation was waiting for them. It was necessary to find a way to convince the heir to the throne to go to their. Unlike the cheerful villa, Gilbert was terribly nervous before this meeting. He always did not like to participate in the negotiations, and Julius himself annoyed him even. The prince met the guests with warmth and did not get angry at all due to delay. He said he was used to working in all conditions, and he was glad to talk to interesting interlocutors. He shared that he read a letter from Willie with great enthusiasm, even read him several times, and did not hide. Julius laughed cheerfully, reading passages from the book, although Willie never realized that there was so funny. However, the prince quickly made it clear that he had many questions, and suggested that he start with the most important thing. He was wondering why Abel's family decided to stand up for Princess Diana, although it could have made enemies in neighboring Estonia. And one more thing. What exactly was Willie struck in Diana's country that he... Willie was surprised that the prince was able to learn so much from one letter, and promised to tell about his true intention. At first, they began to learn everything about the magical academy, and it surprised the prince. Willie told him that the one that attacked the dungeon arrived from Estonia and used an artifact made at this academy. But all this raises many questions because the academy is considered a sacred place even for the royal family. Just so you... Willie was sure that one of their surroundings gave the murderer a magical artifact, and this person should be found. And Gilbert remembered a long history. Once a curse was imposed on their family. For several years, they have tried to find the one who was guilty. During this time, many people were killed, but now they have a new hint. She again leads to the same academy. Julius realized that all this has some attitude towards the treasure of the Abel family. Because of this, they are not allowed to get to the academy. Willie decided to take care of security and make a special mask. The management of the academy has always been suspicious of both the royal family and the kind of Abeli. Meanwhile, all internal affairs were under the control of the Shadow Ministry of Children of famous and influential families study at this school, so you cannot act openly. It is very risky. After all, every student can easily... Since official information is not available, you have to look for another way. Still, the truth will open over time. Julius realized why Abel's brothers decided to ask Diana's help. It was a smart and very successful decision. Willie did not argue. He was ready to go even the hardest way to protect his family's inheritance. Gilbert promised that he would inevitably find the one who caused the tragedy of their family and will make him be responsible for the committed. The prince did not see any benefit to the kingdom, and did not even know what the treasure of the Abel family was. Therefore, he was in no hurry to interfere. Willie refused because he believed that information about the magical academy may also need the kingdom. However, the prince was still hesitant, because any information carries a... Although their families have long cooperated, deciding to protect the one who is suspected of conspiracy is very difficult. Everyone should understand what such actions can lead to. Julius mentioned another funny detail from the letter and did not restrain laughter again. And Willie still could not understand that it... The prince confessed that he did not fully understand the content of the letter, but he was sure that the main thing was one thing. It was necessary to protect Princess Diana. Willie also confirmed that... Julius apologized for his laughter and made Willie a proposal. If he agrees, Julius will personally negotiate with us. The prince wanted to give the magician an honorary title, but it would mean life for him in luxury, but in captivity. It was thanks to Willie that magical technologies flourished, and his experience in the battles made him a true invincible hero. He cleared the dungeons of monsters and found invaluable artifacts. His power could influence the whole state, and there was no one in the world who would be equal to his skills. Julius realized that he could not allow... However, it was not suspicious, but rather a warning. This option could not be rejected. The prince did not pay attention to other Willie's relatives. He was only worried by Willie himself, because he had to become part of the royal family. Julius thought that Willie did not look like his brother at all. He was a real patriot, looked at his homeland. That is why he had to sign this agreement. The prince said he always behaved carefully and prepared for the worst. Willie is a very strong demon that you need to monitor. The prince assured that there was no trap here. Having received the title, Willie will be able to join the important affairs of the state and gain new knowledge. Julius watched the villa closely, waiting for his decision, whether he would stick to the golden yoke, whether the princess would return home, where she is already trapped. In the end, Willie stuck to accept the title from the prince himself, and it was terribly pleased with Julius because he always liked to win. He promised the new subject to a large estate and his own servant to help him get used to him. The solemn ceremony was scheduled. If Willie does not have time to prepare, there will be no agreement with Estonia. The prince reassured him, they say. With the new title to Willie Julius offered the land on the western border, the one that no one was cultivated yet, and where there was no soul. Willie did not expect it. The prince was just a cheerful. He has completely different intentions in his head. While Willie was preparing for the ceremony, Julius meanwhile, when Willie was left alone with his brother, he could not hide his astonishment. The prince so cunningly tasted everything he did not even understand how he got. Gilbert said it was worth rejoicing, because it is a great honor. But Willie replied that with the new title to work it became only harder. But this time he decided not to resist. For the sake of his beloved nephew, he was ready for everything to save Princess Diana. When the dungeon was cleared, the treasure itself appeared before the Zik. It seems not by chance, but for some special reason. Willie decided to continue to take care of his nephew. Gilbert suggested erecting an estate next to his father's home, but Willie decided that it would be easier to buy an empty house nearby. He did not want to stay at home all his life. Instead, Gilbert stressed that they should quickly find the faithful vassal, because there is little time. Willie agreed. If you ask a vassal from Gilbert, the prince would immediately suspect something. In addition, strangers cannot be attracted, because family secrets weigh much more. The magician wondered which of the Abel family close to his family, and suddenly an interesting thought came to him. The best candidate would be a desperate adventurer Nicola, an old friend and a reliable ally who helped the Abel's family repeatedly in difficult times.